call our meeting to order. Are there any citizens' concerns that are not on the agenda? We're off to a good start.
Can I do a citizen's concern?
All right, you're a citizen. Please
I'm a
speak.
citizen and taxpayer, Jim Bell. I was at the budget meeting last Thursday, and I was very confused, which isn't new, but I was very confused, and I said to myself, when was there a new election and David Young became the new chairperson and the assistant superintendent? So as a citizen, I would really like to hear more from Ruth, more from Pat, and less from David. Thank you.
Are there any other citizens' concerns? If not, I would like to start with Deb and have her introduce and go around and introduce ourselves, because we have a father of our attorney who's also an attorney we've had in the district for eons, and I think we're not going to give him a test at the end of the day, but if we can all say who we are and where we're from, it might help.
Deb Gilbert and Town of Bernardston.
Bill Walsh from Northfield.
Peggy Keppel from Leiden.
Sharon Fontaine from Leiden.
Sue O'Reilly McCrae from Warwick.
Martha Morse from Warwick.
Ruth Miller, Superintendent.
And I'm Pat Sherr from Northfield.
I'm Fred Dupre, legal counsel, the father of Russell Dupre, and we're in the Dupre law offices.
We've seen Adam too, so
Adam too?
We have.
Yeah. Oh, you have?
we have.
I wasn't sure if it
Yeah.
was just Russell.
Oh, yes.
And we have a new law associate too,
Oh, really?
Kimberly Roach.
Okay, haven't seen her yet.
Fred, I'm David Young from Warwick. We've met previously.
We have.
Ann Harding, I'm the recording secretary.
Jeannie Milton from the Town of Bernardston.
I'm Robin Litchfield from North.
John Rogers, Town of Leiden.
Jim Bell, Bernardston.
Ella Bodie from Northfield.
And Jay Comiskey from Northfield.
And the two students are our student reps who keep us informed and happy and laughing, and we need that. Okay.
Oh,
Yes, David?
notwithstanding Mr. Bell's desire not to hear from me, Fred should probably know that two of the members of this committee are employees of the district, and one of them just spoke out against me. And I have issue with there being employees of the district on the governing board and acting in ways and in manners that they should not act because they have either direct financial interests or are otherwise conflicted.
All right, the minutes of the July 13th, August 9th, August 24th, and August 31st are, I guess I misspoke, the August 31st are not there, but the other ones are here. Have people had a chance to look through them?
Yep.
Do you find any corrections that need to happen, or are we all okay, or?
Are we going to do them one at a time?
Yes, we are. So we're now talking about the 13th of July.
I have one question. On page 3 at the bottom where it says curriculum and personnel, is that date correct? The 25th? Or was it the 26th?
I don't have it written down anywhere, so I don't know. Does anyone know?
Not that important.
Yeah.
Whatever was 13.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know it's July.
Yeah.
I don't have that
I thought
here.
it was the 26th. I don't know that it makes that much
I've got it at home. I
Yeah.
don't have it here.
Okay.
26th was a Wednesday. 25th was a Tuesday.
I had it in my head that it was the 26th we were supposed to do, but,
Yeah, I truly don't know.
okay, just let it go. It's not a big deal.
Is there a motion to accept these as printed?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of July 13th as printed.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? With one abstention, which was Robin. Robin. Okay. Moving on to the 9th of August. Is anyone ready to make a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes of the August 9th meeting
As printed?
as printed.
And a second? You weren't here. We'll forgive you.
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor? Opposed?
One abstention.
Two abstaining. David, did you vote on it? I didn't see your hand up.
No, I didn't vote, but I'll vote aye.
Okay, thank you. Now we're to the 24th.
I have one thing on page 1. On the bottom of the page, my name is spelled wrong, just MC
Oh, yeah.
capital R.
Oh, sorry.
There's so many different spellings for that name. I thought O'Reilly was gonna be the hard part.
Thought I had that on spell
You do
check.
everywhere else.
I know, I
Yeah,
had it on spell
you do
check.
everywhere else, yeah.
Mine comes out crazy all the time too.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. So on page 2, where it says heart, that's an acronym, so it should all be caps.
Where's that?
Page 2.
Oh.
First paragraph, yeah.
It's also
a
in,
couple of times,
page
yeah.
1. All right.
Is there anything else people find?
Yeah, sorry.
Good,
Page-
all right.
Page 4,
Okay.
where it says personnel. I noted that there were 13 resignations from Pioneer this summer, and I don't see that in the minutes.
Is there anything anyone else sees? If not, a motion to approve?
A motion to approve as read.
And a second? All those in favor? Opposed? That was unanimous.
I'm abstaining, I wasn't
Oh,
there.
I didn't see it,
Aye.
okay, okay. Didn't see those hands.
I'm voting anyway, and I wasn't there.
You trust
You
us,
watched
right,
the
David?
movie.
It looks like minutes to me.
It's your prerogative.
They are minutes. Okay, the revenue report is the next on our agenda. Was that given to us? There's that?
It's,
Okay.
I think it's in the packet. Or I put one around, so I
They're
don't know.
separate, they're in these little packets with paper clips on them. If you need another one, there's a file right here.
Okay, I don't believe I have that.
Good question.
Sure.
Right here.
Yes.
So when I was looking at the minutes, I was noting things that I had concerns about that were mentioned as requests or would be provided later to the committee. But I don't know when is the right time to check in on that. Is it during old business? Or when we're approving? It's not really about the minutes, it's about things that were in the minutes that were supposed to be handled at another time that I want to check in on.
I don't know when the best time to talk about that would be. I would think under,
Under old
Sounds like old
business?
business.
yeah.
Old business, not on the minutes.
Because
I
it's not
think
really
so.
about the accuracy of the
Right,
minutes, it's about
right.
following up on the minutes.
Right, yeah, I
So
would
it's
say,
under old business?
Yeah.
I would think so.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm gonna write your name here so I don't forget, Sue,
Okay, thank you.
in case we get busy.
Yep.
Okay. Did everybody get one of these?
Yeah, I think
They did,
there was
okay.
a,
I didn't
handed
have,
some
I
out,
didn't
too.
have one, so that's why I wondered. Okay. No, I've got it here, so okay. Do you want to read us through it, or?
So
What's
is
the
it
treasurer's report?
in the pile with the management letter, is that?
No, it's a
No,
separate
no,
thing.
It's a separate thing?
Got a paper clip around it.
Yeah, here, so.
Here.
There's another
I
one.
got it, it's just on the bottom.
It's on the
Just a
bottom.
lot of paper.
Yeah, there is a lot of it.
Okay, sorry. I'm all set.
Can you read us through it?
Well, I think
first?
it's, I mean, you've seen these every month, and basically the first is the budgeted number that was voted, and then it talks about what's been received to date in each of the categories and the balance that's remaining, and then you can see at the bottom the balance in each of the different banks. And at some point, I think you need to decide whether this is the report that's going to give you the information that you're looking for on a monthly basis, or is there something more? This is something that's just always been done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, if this works and you have an understanding of where we are, but maybe at the end of the evening after we go through that broader sheet, it might be something you want to have as your actual report, along with this or separate. I'm not sure what this does for everybody. Kind of shows the revenues coming in.
Okay. So put that in the back of our hats and we can decide at the end of our meeting.
I don't think it does.
Okay. Accounts payable
We're
are
done.
not.
They were done the last time.
Oh, right, because.
Everybody,
had-
so many
had
people
between.
were there, right?
Yes, Jeannie.
I'm just looking at the cash balances
Mhm.
under general fund. There's a huge increase from July to August
That's,
in both the Greenfield Co-op and People's United.
would that be the assessment?
3 assessments.
Is that because the assessments that came in?
The assessments came in earlier. We had asked the towns, because we were having that cash flow problem.
And that's why the figures are so much higher?
I'm sure that's why they're higher. They should have dipped after we actually paid off that RAND.
Should be.
But it all happened kind of at the end of July.
So they went up, dipped down.
Right.
Mm.
So I think that's why you see it, because that RAND wasn't paid off, and typically we would have much less money at that point.
And I have another question. At the top of the town assessments with the PVR's capital projects, why are there two different budgeted numbers here?
So for
If you-
August,
For July, it says
yep.
8/8.
8849, and for July, it's 8811.
So the 8811 number is the correct amount that we would assess the towns. And I think that she added in the capital projects in the August one, and not, I mean, in the
And the July one?
July one, and
Yeah,
not
it's
in the
cool.
August
I
one.
was gonna say, in the August one, the capital projects are on a separate line,
Correct.
but they haven't been deleted from the title of the first line.
Right, that,
So if you added the two together, you should come up with this figure. No, but it doesn't work.
no, and because there was some confusion about, there's capital projects that everybody shares with the district, and then there's also capital projects at the elementary schools that are sometimes taken on by the towns, because Gail goes to the towns and asks them what they might want on the, if anything, on a capital budget.
So, but it does,
No, it comes out almost, it comes out exactly.
It's exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
it should.
Exactly
so
right.
the
That's how it
August
should,
one
yeah.
should not include the PVRS
It should.
capital
Right.
project.
That's
Right.
not correct, it's separated out in August.
It's exactly this right figure.
It comes out to the dollar.
Okay, great,
Okay.
that's what it should be doing. Okay, and the expenditure report we also saw at our last meeting, correct?
Yes,
All
yeah.
right. Warrants are here, and I will pass them along.
I think that might be just one for you
This
to
is,
sign.
yeah,
'cause-
I did that already, but these are, no, there's none for other people?
No,
Did
because
we
at
sign
the
those the
budget
other night
meeting,
too?
we signed everybody, that we had
Yeah,
enough
we have enough
signatures.
people, okay.
Those
We'll
were-
pass on that.
Okay.
Which brings us to our auditors report. And our auditors are sitting there smiling at us, and we'll put them to work. You're on.
I don't know why they're smiling. Said, I don't know why you're smiling.
Just because there's a lynch mob behind you.
Okay, well, thank you. So my name is Pat Squillanti. I'm a partner with Clements and Heath. And with me is Tandy Campbell, one of my other, one of my additional partners. So you have two partners here. Giving the presentation. We are giving a report for fiscal 16 audit. And I know we've done this presentation. This is only the second year that we've audited the district. And last year when we did the presentation, I gave you a longer spiel about what an audit does and doesn't do and all of that, so I'll save you from that. But just to reiterate that, you know, an audit's not designed to give you 100% assurance that everything is spent correctly in accordance with laws and your intentions and so forth. I would also maybe just say that, you know, the auditor has a specific role, and it's not really a consultant advisory type role. So, you know, I know we've talked with various members about some of the issues and with the superintendent about some of the issues that the district is facing, and we'll, you know, hit on those in the management letter comments. But it's a finite role that your auditors play.
Can I ask you a question? So you're saying you're not an advisor, but would it, I'm new to the committee, can you just tell me what is your role?
Certainly.
Is that okay?
So-
Sorry, I know you guys heard it before, but, you know.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the chair
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
you know,
sorry,
get direction
I
on
should have looked at
how you
her
wanna do it.
first, yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that.
So an audit is, the function of an audit is really to give our opinion on your financial statements and whether they are what's considered materially fairly stated. So are they supported by bona fide verifiable information? Are you in compliance with at least the major sorts of laws, and in this case Mass General laws, and how they relate to school districts? And then we are responsible for evaluating your internal control structure over material transaction cycles. So how you pay your bills, how you do your payroll, what kind of checks and balances you have, are you reconciling timely, those sorts of things. And then we are responsible for reporting anything that we consider to be a material weakness. Materiality is a you know, calculated number that varies depending on the size of your organization. So we use that word a lot, and so it varies. I have no idea what it is here. You have a $15 million general fund, so 50, maybe 50,000.
Yeah.
Probably 30 to 50,000 is what we would consider material. Just to give you a ballpark.
So if something's out of whack by that amount, you would say there's a material weakness
Correct.
in this system? Okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
Which is different than an advisor who would come in and look at, for example, your management systems overall, looking specifically at efficiencies, looking at, your risk assessment process, for example. Those are all things we do. They're not part of the audit. They're,
Okay.
It's a separate sort of function.
Thank you.
Go for it.
David?
Isn't one answer to why you can't be consultants have to do with conflict of interest and financial history in the United States in the last 10, 15 years?
Well, it has to do with independent standards that we have to live within. So there are a number of things that we are, by the standards, not allowed to do. We can't make management decisions. So, for example, if we were talking about the budget and you asked whether we thought, you should cut teachers or cut something, those are management decisions. We can't make those. We can do sort of hard and fast numerical type calculations. So, for example, we could compile a bank reconciliation because it's purely a matter of what checks did you issue, for example, and what cleared. So there's, that kind of factual thing we can do. When you get into opinion or advice, not so much. And we have to be very careful about the kinds of services we can do for our audit clients because of that.
Thanks.
So as I said, we're reporting on the fiscal 16 financial statements. Given that it's almost October of 2017, we thought it might not be particularly useful to actually go through the financial statements themselves, since they're obviously very old. You've already passed another fiscal year. Also because the issues that we would point out from the financial statements are really captured in the management letter comments that we have. So we thought it might make more sense to really just go through the management letter comments, as opposed to typically we would sort of walk you through the financial statements themselves. So if that makes sense to you, we can do that. Okay. So you should have, I don't know if you have them in front of you, but we actually issued 3 separate reports. One is a financial statement, it's the real thick one. And then there are 2 thinner reports. One of them is a management letter, and the other one is a report on your federal grants. Part of the reason that the reason you have an audit, or you are required to have an audit, is because you spent over $750,000 in total federal funds in a fiscal year. When you do that, the Federal Single Audit Act requires that you have a financial statement audit as well as a grant audit. You can always elect to have an audit, even if if you spent less than $750,000. We have a number of clients that do that. But in your case, you were just over that threshold. So, like it or not, you were getting audited, basically, is what I'm saying. So the report that we want to go through is the management letter. And as an overall, as I said, this is only the second year that we've audited the district. So we did 15 and 16. In FY15, there were actually greater number of management letter comments than there are in 16. And there were some federal grant compliance issues that we had in 15 that we did not find in 16. So those are good.
Thanks, Robin.
Can I just want to be really clear. If we're talking about financial year 16, year ending June 16, that was not last school year, but the previous school year. And when we talk about 15, that was 3 school years ago.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So FY16 is July 1, 2015
Yes.
to June 30th.
Correct. So we are
2016.
not talking about last year, we're talking about the year before.
And the year before that.
Budget was made.
And when she compares it to 15, we're talking about 3 years ago. I just feel like the school year can be confusing
Absolutely.
for people because it starts and it ends halfway through a calendar year. So
Right. Right.
unless you're thinking about it that way, it's
Right.
very confusing to think how long ago we're talking.
Yes. And we, as auditors, we're always looking backwards at the history, and our clients are always looking forward to the next year's budget.
Correct.
Right.
Deb?
I would also like to jumping back to that in regards to, the budget was actually made by the previous superintendent, if I,
For this,
for fiscal year
fiscal-
2016.
that would be correct, yes.
The budget was made by the previous.
Mhm.
So, just to be clear for everybody, we're talking about not last year, but the year before, and the budget would have been made the year before that.
Exactly. I mean, as we'll talk about, we're here during fiscal, well, we were here during fiscal 17, doing the fiscal 16 audit. So we do, try to incorporate what we understand is going on at the time that we're actually doing the audit. And several of the comments describe what the situation was in 16, but also what we see happening in 17 at the time, up to the time we issued the report. So in terms of the management letter, as I said, there were a few things that were resolved and not repeated from the first year that we audited you. However, the more significant issues do continue and still require attention. So the first comment is improving controls over the budget process, and it's an issue that we consider to be a material weakness. So just to recap how we term these comments, and this is based on audit standards and the verbiage with that. A material weakness is an issue that is significant enough that it could allow for a material misstatement of your financial statements to occur. One step sort of down from that is a significant deficiency, which is, it's not quite that big. There are mitigating factors in some way that don't make the internal control flaw or issue so great that you could materially misstate your financial statements, but it's still important enough that people charged with governance, being the school committee, needs to pay attention to it. And then there are ones that don't have a name, which are really just recommendations for improvements, efficiencies, that sort of thing. So the first few comments are, first two comments are material weaknesses, and the first one has to do with the budget. This is was repeated from the prior year, fiscal 15. And then basically, it's a long comment. The first page is it's all broken down into sections. The first page is really talking about there's a number of things that either were included or were omitted from what we could find of your budget documents. And out of those, some of those were also omitted from your general ledger system itself. So as a result, there would be no way to monitor what was happening. Obviously, if it's not in your system, or the budget number that you have in your system doesn't represent what was voted, you have no ability to monitor. And that we just break that down into, because of the way you vote your budget, into your operating budget, capital budget, and then the building project or the debt-related budget, because there were several issues with all three of those components. The more meaningful or the more significant part of this comment in my mind is the first bullet on page 4, which is talking about what appears to us to have been, and again, we're talking about 16, so not the year that just ended, but the year prior to that, what appeared to be what we would call a structural budget deficit. So I know there's been a lot of talk about this. I mean, I live in the community, so I read the paper, and I want to just spend a little bit of time to make sure that everybody understands where we're coming from and what we mean by it. Typically, in a school district, there is usually one comprehensive, one-page summary of all your sources and all your uses of funds. And it balances. Your sources equal your uses. In Massachusetts, you're required to have a balanced budget. Usually it's in a very summarized format. And typically, just the way it looks, it starts with like your operating budget, back out state aid, transportation aid, maybe interest income, miscellaneous. As a school district, you don't have a lot of revenue sources. You have maybe, in your general fund, you have maybe 5. Backs those out, and then that, what's remaining becomes what's going to be assessed to the towns. Obviously it's not that simple a calculation in terms of what you end up, what you vote your operating budget to be. But, it's a lot of, give and take on that number to get down to an assessment figure that your towns can live with. But just conceptually, that's what the budget summary looks like. Source and use, 1 page. The operating budget is summarized by administration, instruction, other school services, fixed charges like that, very summarized. We were unable to find a document that resembled that at all in 15 or 16. So what we were left with was piecing together what we could find as things like the voted operating budget based on school committee minutes or what was supplied with the minutes. So we had what was voted as your operating budget. We knew what that number was. We knew what the assessments were because it was communicated to the towns. And then we pieced together the other pieces of it. For example, how much school choice you anticipated using, how much school choice you are going to be assessed. So we pulled that together to come up with what are your sources and what are your uses. And based on the documentation and the numbers that we could find, you had voted an operating budget that was higher than your sources by this $380,000. So it's just, first of all, it's important to understand, I'm not saying that you deliberately, knowingly voted it that way. We could not find a document that would show in total how you were going to fund your entire operating budget. So one of our primary recommendations has been that you need to have that. You need, when you're voting, overall, having that source and use.
Robin.
Ma'am? So I just want to, this is how I operate. I have to reiterate and make sure I'm hearing correctly. I'm sorry. What I'm hearing is that it is typical to have a very simplified cover page, if you will, that doesn't include a lot of broken down line items, but really condenses everything down into a few pieces. Okay.
Yes, and then typically what I see is you have that one cover page, and then you drill down.
It can get as detailed as you want underneath.
Exactly, because obviously those summarized numbers are coming from somewhere, so
Correct.
the detailed line items are compiled up into the larger category.
Okay. I'm just asking because my experience of the process has been that people tend to go the opposite way.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Typically, the number is voted in February.
Right.
And then
Right.
we don't know what the state will do until who knows when.
Yep.
So how does that work?
That's when you go back. At least you're starting with one point that's
But
balanced.
if you don't know what the revenue will be,
You're using the estimates that the state is given you. I mean, your transportation aid is probably one of the biggest fluctuating numbers.
That's huge.
Agreed. I'm not. Please don't misunderstand that I'm making this sound like it's an easy thing. I truly, I've been doing this for 30 years. I really do appreciate the even more difficult position that school districts are in because of how much more in advance you need to get your budget set so that your towns can vote it at their town meeting. And just to finish, in terms of what happens when you're adjusting, it is a continual process. And as your revenue sources are decreasing, or if they decrease, you're forced to either use another available source of money, for example, school choice or circuit breaker, or cut expenses.
cover sheet, it has a number on it, we vote on it. At that point, that's the big picture. It's balanced. If it goes out of balance because of something that the state later does, you revisit.
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm saying the same thing that Robin is saying, but the budget for the FY16, of course, was originally compiled and voted on in February of 15, quite near the beginning of the year 2015. So later on, after the figures come in, then there should be a one sheet.
No.
No, even in one.
There should have been one sheet
Even in February.
Yes.
There should be a one sheet showing everything.
Yes. I mean,
And then those figures should, of course, be updated as time goes on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The one sheet is supported by, all the detail.
Right.
That you can look at to see what's
When it's-
making up that number. But that,
So our
upper view,
budget.
that higher view of it,
Right.
is important because you can see, it just becomes much clearer, the effect of the decisions that obviously that you're making, but also, if you're recognizing that you don't have the revenue sources to fund all of this now, after the actual numbers become known.
Martha, if you want to talk to me later about what happened at that budget meeting, I was there.
I remember that budget meeting very, very clearly.
That's true.
Yes, indeed.
Feels as though there's been a meeting about this previous to this one, where there have been some questions laid out or something. That hasn't been shared with the full committee, so.
Pardon me?
Continue.
I'm sorry, I
that's
didn't
that's okay.
catch that. Okay. Moving on, correct, okay. So the issue in the management letter comment is, twofold. One that based on what we could find, there appeared to be an anticipated deficit of $380,000. That is not how you ended the year. That's how you, based on what we could find, that's how you anticipated you would end the year. If you had lived to your budget and this, with this budget that we reconstructed, you would have lost, for lack of a better word, on a profit and loss basis, the way a business would, you would have lost that $380,000. That's not what happened. You ended and again, we're talking about FY16, but you ended FY16 with a net income. I don't like using the word profit with, cities, towns, and school districts, but excess of about $25,000. So you basically, broke even. How you got from a budget anticipating that you're going to lose almost $400,000 to actually ending the year with a surplus of excess of $25,000. From what we could tell, the budget basically you, number one, used about $200,000 more of your school choice money than seems to have been originally anticipated. So basically you shifted more costs to your school choice fund than looked to be originally anticipated. So that brought you up $200,000. You underspent in a number of categories, kind of across the board, admin, instruction, all told, by almost $300,000. So, and then you had some over expenditures in debt and in I think choice and charter. You may have overspent on that. So, those were the biggest factors. So you go into the year with this budget anticipating you're going to lose $400,000. You subsidize with school choice money by about $200,000. You cut your spending. You held your spending by another $200,000, and then you went over a little bit on debt and a few other things. All that combined is how you got to basically breaking even for the year. So our real recommendation with the budget is what we've talked about, coming up with some balanced budget that is clear where the sources and uses are coming from. And then the last bullet in that comment, excuse me, is, you know, just talking about what I'm sure you all know, but your, how slim your, what they call undesignated fund balance, or your E&D is. You ended 16 with an undesignated, you know, unobligated surplus of about 113,000, which is less than 1% of your budget. So it's very, very small. You know, your max you can have is 5%, but, so, you know, we just continue to recommend that you consider that in the future when putting the budget together, and think about trying to restore some of that surplus to the degree you can.
David?
So when I heard you say we're required to have a balanced budget, that troubled me a little. The way I understood it meant more like you're required not to have a budget that clearly shows before you start that you're going to lose money. But with your latest statement, we could have expenses such as contingency or reserves or margin to get to this 5%. Maybe I was reading ahead, but do you agree?
I'm sorry, I missed the very last part of what you said.
Or margin or reserves, but if we're required, to many folks, if we are required to have a balanced budget, then we need to spend what we say we're going to spend and have real revenues against the revenues. But in fact, we are permitted to underspend, and we've got a long way to go before we could be penalized for having too much.
And that wasn't what I meant. What I meant was you know, in Massachusetts, just statewide, cities, towns, you have to have a balanced budget. So of course you can underspend, and you know that's oftentimes where the surplus gets, how the surplus gets built.
And we could have a budgetary expense category called contingency.
Generally, no.
No.
The state tends to frown on that.
So we should build it in line by line?
That's the way people generally do it. My whole point was only that, for example, cities and towns, when they set their taxes, you know, the sources have to equal the uses.
Yeah.
So and it's the same theory for regional school districts. That's not true in the rest of the country, is what I'm saying. In Massachusetts, the way the laws are, for an appropriation, you have to have a source.
But I'm sorry. What David is saying is that if each line, we said, you know, this is the revenue we have, this is what we plan to spend, and really we knew possibly that we could spend a little less. At the end of the year, it would be okay if we end up with more, it's just we can't end up with less.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on the, you said that we ended up at the end of FY16 with 25,000. I remember, and well, I found it in my file today, papers that were presented to the school board at the first meeting with the new superintendent, new administration. And that was in 2015, because you came in 2015.
15, 16, yep.
So it was either August or September you came in and presented figures, and you froze the budget, is that what you call it? You froze all spending.
Correct.
Right.
So that, in essence, prevented us from going
Correct.
under. That's why we ended up with at least 25,000 at the end of that. Okay.
Yes, I think that's a fair conclusion.
I just wanted to clarify
but-
that timing on that.
Yeah. We're only looking at the general fund, though, in this audit, correct?
Yes.
So, well,
I mean, we look at all your funds, but in
Right, but
terms of
it-
the budget, because that's the only fund you're required to have
because
a budget
the
for.
25,000 or whatever we had, it doesn't address the $200,000 deficit in the
Oh, correct.
food lunch. And so I don't want people to
Right,
think
I
that we're 25,000 ahead when some of the, you know, the other funds were in the negative.
Correct.
Right, so you're just looking at, I just wanted them to frame that they knew it's just a general fund.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, David?
So I'm a little troubled. We need a comprehensive budget document, rolled up, something that looks at everything from sports fees to grants to...
No.
No?
We do, but they don't.
All right.
When I'm talking about a comprehensive budget document, I am talking about just the general fund.
Yeah, I was deluded to think that a single audit would audit everything we do, not just the
We did
general
look at
fund and the
everything we do.
grants.
We do look at it.
So what can we conclude from a $25,000 net operating surplus? I mean, that's one silo. What else do we have going on that we should know about?
There wasn't any, I'm sure you have lots of things that are going on, but in terms of what the areas that we feel need the most attention, they are focused on the general fund. I mean, you know, we do have a comment, we'll obviously talk about it, relating to the school lunch deficit, which we've talked about last year. The other funds did not indicate any issue that we felt was significant enough to put in a manageable comment. You know, we're of the no news is good news when it comes to that stuff. The next comment relates to the controls in the treasurer's office, and Tanya's going to speak to that one. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Right. So, comment number 2 was also noted in the management letter in 2015. Although in 2015 we reported it as a significant deficiency, and this year we changed it to material weakness because we felt that issues had worsened over the past year. One of the responsibilities of the district's treasurer is to keep a cash book. A cash book is essentially a register for each bank account. So like you would keep in for your own personal bank account, that on a monthly basis you would record the deposits that come in, the disbursements that are paid out, and any transfers between bank accounts. At the end of the month, that calculated balance would then be reconciled to the bank statements. And at that point, you would identify any outstanding items, such as your outstanding checks, deposits and transits, things like that. After that reconciliation has occurred, those balances would then be reconciled to the district's general ledger cash balances to make sure and provide a check and balance that everything that made it into the bank was also recorded in the general ledger, and everything in the general ledger made it into the bank. In fiscal year 2016, and as we also noted in 2015, the treasurer was keeping a manual cash book that didn't really distinguish each bank account individually. Due to the number of transactions that pass through the district on a monthly basis, yearly basis, and just the general susceptibility of having errors in a manual record, we had recommended and continue to recommend that the treasurer either switch to an Excel spreadsheet or some other software program like Quicken or QuickBooks, or even using the treasurer's module in the district's general ledger. Our understanding is that there's really no formal cash book being maintained in 2017 either. We also were informed during our audit fieldwork back in May of 2017, and some recent conversations we had, that the bank reconciliations have not been done since June of 2016. Now, cash reconciliations are one of the key controls for the school district, for any organization. So this concerns us, and while we do understand that the treasurer came in after a period of time where there was no one in that position, so she already came in kind of behind the 8 ball. And she's only in the office 1 day a week, which, as you can imagine, there's a lot of things to accomplish in 1 day. People need to be paid, payroll needs to get processed, bills need to be paid,
on top of the other, making deposits and other things that need to get done on a weekly basis. She doesn't really have a good chunk of time to devote and really tackle that project. And as everyone knows, every day that goes by is another day you end up behind. So we recommended to the district that they seek some outside assistance to bring someone in and help the treasurer tackle this project and really get caught up on the bank reconciliations and put a process in place going forward so the district doesn't end up in this position again. We can't stress enough, I guess, the urgency of needing to do this sooner than later. Having gone this long without having formal reconciliations in place, and the district cannot formally close their books in 2017 until these reconciliations are done, and you don't really have a good handle on where things ended in 2017. Things could have been okay, as Pat said before. There's not a lot of room there. You don't have a huge surplus, so if things aren't okay, it's better to know that sooner than later. Concerns there.
Thank you. Is there any questions of the committee? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Dave?
Could you tell me how you managed to audit, given the state of affairs? I mean, a reconciled cash book to a general ledger seems like the first step. Do you draw a line in the sand and just pick up a number?
No, I mean, there was bank reconciliation, so we can see the bank balance minus outstanding checks gives you a reconciled balance. Those, if we add up all of those reconciled bank balances and compare it to the general ledger, it materially agrees with what you have in the district's general ledger. There was not a large difference there. There's no cash book, which is important to have, but we can't, which is why we're reporting it here, but we can still take the reconciled bank balances, which had bona fide reconciling items from what we could tell in terms of outstanding checks, things like that, cleared in the subsequent month, nothing that looked unusual, no plugs or anything like that. So we can then have some assurance that what we're looking at, agrees to the general ledger balances.
Robin?
So, we can give an audit opinion on that, but that's why we're reporting this issue in the management letter.
Yes, Robin?
Does that answer your question?
Do you have a
I
follow-up?
I couldn't do your job, so the question was a little bit of a flyer.
Okay,
It just seems so fundamental that if you start out on building on a bowl of Jell-O, how do you?
Well, there's bank reconciliations as of 6/30/16.
Since June
They haven't been done after that, and we audited 6/30/16.
Yeah.
So you're telling us that our next audit might not be so,
Well, we couldn't possibly do an audit at this point in time, because there is no bank reconciliation. We have nothing to, we would have to stop, so.
so maybe one day a week is not enough.
A couple of days.
That's the kind of thing they don't want.
Then, yeah, we can't,
Right.
advise on that.
I just want to reiterate, what Tanya's saying, material weakness. Like most cities, most municipal organizations, you report everything on a cash basis, basically. It's different than a business. Everything, all of your balances, your activity, everything, it's cash driven. How much cash did I get in? I mean, I say cash, I don't literally mean dollars, but what is happening with your cash balance, your bank balances? It's, Tanya said it, I mean, we can't stress it enough. This is a very big issue. In our opinion.
I'm not even sure this is the correct place to be asking this question, but we had discussed someone coming in to help out the treasurer. Has that happened?
So, I have a meeting actually tomorrow with a person, that has been in our district before, as works for FERCog, that knows the treasurer role, knows the accounting role, And we're going to talk about exactly what she can do in a very short period of time. Our treasurer actually is going to be out of town. And so we're hoping that when she comes in, she can get it all done, but also set up the, you know, kind of the workflow of how it's supposed to take place. So I'm pretty confident that she's going to be able to do it as long as the committee, because technically the treasurer is under the committee's oversight. So as long as you're okay with me moving forward with that, that's the current plan.
Okay. Robin?
Well, two things. That's probably after this, we should vote on that, right? And
Can't hear you,
B,
Robin.
I'm sorry. A, after this, we should probably vote on that. B, will this individual be able to help us move towards putting this on some kind of electronic platform, because that seems like it's necessary?
So the current treasurer is, has been attempting to put the things into the system, into,
The module?
yeah, and you know, it's, everything's new, so it's very, very slow, and you know, you gotta go back and do checks and balances. So if it was in there all set up nicely with kind of, you know, some understanding or some written documentation about exactly how you go about it, I think at this point, probably giving the treasurer more time would make sense, but also I think that she would have a handle. It's just cleaning it up and learning it all at the same time has been brutally hard.
Okay. Continue. Yes, Sharon, do you have other questions
One
of
more
them?
thing on this subject.
Okay.
And David had mentioned at one meeting previously that we should explore a payroll agency or something. So I'm hoping that the budget subcommittee will take a look at that.
I think that was on the agenda for last night when the meeting was canceled, so that will happen. Is that the end of your report, or do you have more to inform us?
I have another.
Okay, that's what I
There is
have a
another comment that has to
deficiency.
do with the school lunch.
Okay,
Because,
good,
you know,
great.
school lunch program has sustained deficits.
Yeah, is it appropriate to ask a question or not?
Are you okay with answering questions from
It's up to you.
Jack?
Yeah?
Yes,
Okay,
short.
thanks. So, when you did the 2016 audit, and at what point did it appear that there was a $380,000 structural deficit?
What do you mean by that? Because, you know.
Well, somebody, you're talking about there seemed to be an underlying $380,000 structural deficit, right?
Yeah.
So, at what point did you realize that?
As we were pulling the budget documents together, reviewing the minutes, it's just one of the audit tests that we do during the audit.
Did you tell anybody on the school committee that you had a $380,000 structural deficit, maybe?
We discussed it with the business manager, superintendent at the time during the audit, asking her whether or not that looked reasonable to her. This, like we said, the district didn't end up in a deficit position, so we normally don't communicate with the school committee on any kind of issues we note during the audit. You know, as we're working through the audit, this is the point where we would note that, communicate that to those charged with governance.
Do you understand that at that point?
So, well, as we go down this road, one of the first things I did in one of the first meetings with the committee is I looked at the budget and I was very, very panicked about it.
I remember $400,000, right?
Right, and so I, and the old auditor, your past auditor had, knowing that it was there, he had come in, and I knew him from another district, and he said, you need to know this. And that's, you know, that was like day 1 or day 2. And at that point, with the committee, you know, because it's not just me doing this, it's a committee, got together and said, yeah, we should freeze this, and we did watch it. And it was, you know, kind of a collaborative effort with all of us, because, you know, we looked at it and saw the numbers, and we didn't ignore it. So it didn't really matter when it came up, but that's from the very beginning is when we started addressing it, and we're still trying to address it.
When you realized that there might be a deficit of that size and you had trouble finding the paperwork to support things, did you seek, I remember that at the time there was a $400,000 question that was raised in the newspaper.
The same meeting.
I was wondering, when you were looking for the paperwork, did you ask the previous superintendent if there was perhaps a communication problem here, or she could have directed you to a place where you could have been happy?
No, I mean, in an audit, we deal, as we're performing functions, we deal with management. And, unless the current management directed us to reach out to a prior administration, we would not.
Thank you.
Okay. You have more on this?
Not on that.
Right.
Yeah. The next comment has to do with the school lunch deficit. As you are well aware, it has been continually getting more and more in deficit every year. And it ended in 2016 with a deficit of about $220,000. I don't know how much more I can say about this issue. It's part of, primarily the reason why you have a certified negative E&D, excess and deficiency, every year. So if you end your year with a positive balance of $113,000 in the general fund, that's your starting point for E&D, and then the state backs off any deficits. So you're automatically going to end up in a deficit E&D position as long as you continue to have a school lunch deficit this size and not, no increase in your general fund growth or operations every year. And the last comment, as part of the audit, we looked at the controls over the cash receipts in the athletic department, and what we do is we meet with the director and talk to them about what processes and procedures they have in place over the receipts that they receive, where do they store things, what documentation do they have as control over what receipts are coming in, how often they turn money over to the business office, things along that line. So we found a couple areas where improvement could be made. There's no formal receipt log to kind of track the money that's coming in and is being collected in her office. She does have rosters and things like that to track who's participating in sports, and uses a system to track that. But really, there should be a log of what the money collected, whether or not it was cash or check, who paid it, and then that should be then subtotaled when it gets turned over to you to make sure that when she actually does a turnover, it's all being handed over to the business office. And at that point, it should then get reconciled to the district's general ledger to make sure that those funds actually made it into the general ledger and were posted to the right account. We looked at the gate receipt form and found that it does include a lot of good information in terms of the date, what kind of event it was, what the ticket numbers that were sold, and reconciles that to the actual receipts collected. But we would recommend that 2 individuals perform the cash out at the end of the night if that's possible, and actually sign the form stating that they did indeed reconcile the tickets and count the funds. And that those gate receipts get turned over immediately because they're always cash. And the next comment probably won't be as much of an issue anymore now that you're in the same building, but the funds are being held for longer than they probably should have been in the athletic department office, and we had just recommended that they get turned over on a weekly basis, or more frequently if they're the gate receipts that are cash. But now that she's in the same building, hopefully that will solve that.
She's taken all your recommendations and already implemented them, which is really nice.
In a lot of times.
Yeah, she really has.
Right, okay. That's good.
Sorry, didn't see that, Sharon.
I have a question to ask the auditors. May I address them?
You may.
With Melanson Heath, as far as the fiduciary relationship you have with, like, this district, who do you feel you're most responsible to report to first? And perhaps in addition to superintendent or the school committee or both? It's the district. The school committee is the district that pays you.
Right, I understand. Our ultimate responsibility is to the school committee. As issues come up, we discuss them with management. I mean, it's not just here, this is how we operate. For example, when we do a management letter, we send a draft to management first. Because frankly, people everybody's human. So I don't want to have a comment out there that says something that's actually inaccurate. They can disagree with me, and they don't, management may not believe it should be a comment. That's a different issue. I feel that, I want to make sure that at least what I'm saying is accurate. You can disagree with me, that's fine. It's still going to be in the report because our responsibility is to the district as represented by the school. But realistically, the way that it works is not for us to go, our link is not directly to school committee members. That's what we work with management for.
So when you give the report to the management, you expect that they're going to then go ahead and do their job and share it with the school committee?
Well, I guess I'm not sure what you mean by that, but our reports are addressed to the school committee.
Okay.
At the conclusion of an audit, we send what's called a governance letter to the school committee, just summarizing certain things that we're required to communicate to you. And that's what we provide the final documents to.
That's all right.
Right. Whether we do a presentation to a committee is really up to the committee. We have clients that just don't ask us to, and unless, I can tell you that with the district's management letter having, the significant issues that it does, if we were not invited to do a school committee presentation, I would request that we do a school committee presentation.
Sue?
I just, did we first see this in May? Like, there was a report in the spring that I remember looking at.
That was the
When we were in
previous.
That was the previous year.
That was the
It
previous
was very
year.
similar to
It
that.
was very similar.
I had
yeah.
the same
Looked just
sensation
like
that
it,
I
Robin.
read
I felt like I
before.
was reading the same thing.
It was in May.
Yeah,
Today I read
Okay,
FY
thank you.
15 and I thought I was reading FY
Yes.
16.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
Same
clarify.
issues.
Thank you.
I'm assuming,
Similar, not the same.
I'm
Not
assuming
exactly.
that
So-
the format looks similar year to year from you.
Yes, even
Yes.
the issues were similar, some of them.
Well, I would say
What?
thank you very
We'd
much.
like them not to be.
Yeah, like that.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
I appreciate all your hard work. Now, if I can find the agenda here.
There we go.
Yeah, I have it. We were going to talk about our budget subcommittee meeting, which didn't happen last night. So we would like to talk somewhat about our budget tonight. Is Karen leaving? I hope not. Okay. So,
Could you, I know it's hard, but we really can't hear. Could you yell?
Well, why don't you use the mics? Here you go, Pat.
are they hitched up?
Yeah, they are.
They are?
Or maybe you have to turn it
that-
on.
turn it off.
Doesn't seem to make any
It
difference.
says it's on. No, it's, no, it doesn't make any difference.
Oh, no, it does. Did that work?
It does? Anybody hear me?
Kathy, can you hear me?
Kathy, can you hear me?
Try that.
No, that one goes to that, no. But they were turning it down. Want to turn that up, Jean, see if that goes up?
Oh,
What?
They can't turn it up. It'll background noise probably.
loud noise will happen.
Oh. We thought we had a solution.
Well, I guess we stretch our voices and we make it work.
Can you hear it now?
No.
Hold it up like this. Can you hear any better?
Little bit?
Oh, you gotta kiss the mic.
I feel like I'm eating an ice cream cone, and it's rubber.
It's not very healthy. Germs on
Actually,
that.
there's not much sugar in it.
That's true. So it doesn't help, huh? It does sort of.
Speaking to your children out in the yard.
Mine were wonderful. I never had to speak loud.
Oh, no.
All right, Bill, be quiet. We're supposed to have a budget subcommittee meeting last night, which didn't occur. And I would wonder if our accountants are still here? Or did they leave?
The auditors, you
The
mean?
Try to
auditors?
get out of here as soon as possible.
All right, they were going to hang around. If they're not,
They are still there.
they are still there. Okay, you are still there. I couldn't see you behind the.
The hiding.
We may have some questions of them. If anyone would like to make a motion to move our subcommittee report from the budget subcommittee to now, maybe we could pick their brains if we need to do that. If John?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we move up the subcommittee report. So,
Is there a second?
Yeah.
All those in favor of moving the committee report? Okay. Opposed? No opposed? Abstaining? All right. I didn't see everybody's hands go up, but I guess if nobody's abstaining or objecting. We did not have a budget subcommittee meeting last night because 3 people could not attend. But I think that budget discussion needs to happen. And in view of what we just heard, that indeed is not this year's budget, but this year's budget we're having some concerns with. I think Ruth has included tonight, I'm having a hard time, papers and stuff. She has got a profit and loss statement, and maybe we can start with that and then work from there around. And
So that's the food lunch.
oh, this is food lunch. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. There's,
All right.
so you have a sheet that looks like this in your folder.
What is this? Can we put a heading on the top?
It says account number, budget, encumbered, expended.
And so this was an attempt to make a comprehensive look at the budget. Thank you, I get to use the phone now. I looked at the Masbo site and some other district sites to look at what they might have had out there to address what the auditors had suggested. And I really couldn't find anything, but I thought that this document, and for those of you that are savvy with Excel, if I can send this to you, you will not only have the summary of all of this information, but under each one of these categories, central office, technology, are all the individual line items that have been rolled up into making this a smaller document for you to look at. But if you wanted to dig down deeper, all of those cells are hidden in the Excel sheet. So you just have to let me know if you want to get that document. And then that would give you a comprehensive look at the entire budget, while at the same time looking at this sheet, which is the more summary of the budget. They had suggested about 10 to 12 categories, and there are a few more there, but I thought that those were ones that would make the most sense. And I gave you the budget that we have and that you voted on, and then the encumbered money, and what's encumbered is all the payroll, all the things we're absolutely required to spend money on. And so we encumber those so that we don't ever go over our budget, and we always have money for those things that are important. There was a column in between here that said spent, but I thought it was really quite irrelevant to look at what has already been spent if we're going to look at this budget and think about where we can save money. And that would be in the unexpended. So we only could not spend money from that last column. Was that clear? Does everybody get that? Okay. So, so then the next one down is the revenues. And this is the budgeted amount of, and I put out the different towns so that it wasn't just in one lump sum. And then the actuals. And that's when the, you know, in, I don't know when it was, June or July, we finally got the last numbers. And you can see that Chapter 70, we got $7,240 more. And our regional transportation went down by $303,601. And Vernon tuition went down $12,470. That's because we now have 14 students coming from Vernon. We had quite a large class graduate last year. I think there were like 22 kids. I'm not sure what that number was, but it was a bigger class leaving and a smaller class coming in. Charter school reimbursement, we got a little extra money, $38,487. And Medicaid, it's really hard to hit that, but my special ed department helps me with that one because they kind of oversee it, and they felt that $48,230 was a better number, so that's a loss of $9,770. And interest income, our new treasurer, when I asked her what, you know, she thought the interest might be, she really was not optimistic that we would hit that 7,400 that we've hit in the past. But again, we don't really have a great handle on that given the, you know, state of affairs of the treasurer's office right at this time. So I reduced that down to 5,000. So it was another reduction of $2,400. So when it's all said and done, we need to consider our budget and think about how we can not spend some money, much like we did in the year that they were discussing, $282,514. So I'll get to that in a minute because we will be able to do that, and the administrative team sat down and talked about doing that, but we also looked at things to go beyond that, beyond the 282,000. We really feel like we needed to cut more so that we at least start getting a little bit of leftover money at the end of the day. So, and then below that is the funds that we talked about. They talked just about the general fund. Well, these are the other funds that we have control over. The damage insurance, that's kind of out there and has just been out there. I don't know when the money came in. It doesn't usually go out, but I would say that would be under the control of the facilities director if in fact they needed something that was damaged. School choice, our beginning balance was $34,796, and now you'll see that it has a negative $152,769. That is a perfect example of not having the revenues in the system. So we have some school choice revenues coming in. They come in at about $77,000 per month. So right now it looks like it's upside down, but the revenues have not been added to that account at this time. And what we're taking out of that, and we have taken out of the last 2 years, we take all the retiree health from the school choice, because we don't take the school choice money and put it into the general fund. We leave it in its own fund, and we put items to it. In the last couple of years, we've done the retiree health, and that's what school choice has gone to. Gate receipts and athletic user fees, are both under the preview of our athletic director and the high school principal. And you can see that they have 13,633 in a beginning balance, and that's the same. And again, the money isn't showing up in these lines at this time. So that's something that we have to work on. Typically, they try to take some uniforms out of this, and they end up taking some supplies out of these gate receipts and user fees.
So is that, when you say it's the money's not been put in and we have to work on it, that was the recommendation of the auditors, that those be deposited in a more timely manner?
Correct, correct,
Okay.
and put into the system. So it's all done in a timely manner. I mean, the athletic
So
director.
the money's in the safe, but nobody's put it on the books?
Well, it's on the, but it's not, it's on the books and they pay attention, but it's not into the software.
Okay.
It's not into the software yet. That's where the, that's the next piece of getting it. It's into the banks, it's accounted for, but it's not necessarily in each of these different funds. Early childhood education, and that's just, they either people pay tuition for the preschool program. We do kind of fund it though, because out of our regular budget, we pay teacher salaries out of that, because we're not able to cover all the salaries of the preschool teachers. And so that's just the money that early childhood gets from parents. And they do write a grant every year, and I think our grant this year was about $93,000, which also helps offset the cost of the teachers. But next year, I think it's going to go down to something like $30,000, and then it's going to be gone completely. So we have someone that's stepped up to, take a look at what can we do along with the principals to maintain a preschool program, but not, this is one area that I think that the committee should pay attention to, because it would potentially change from a full-day preschool program to a half-day, and typically these preschool programs are required by the special ed department for children that are, identified early on, like in the 3-year-old range. So that's something that's coming up, and that's something that I think that you're going to want to be involved with, because it kind of makes a big decision, and it affects families, and it affects your past practice of being able to, give these programs. Yeah.
Where were we getting that grant from?
It was a state grant.
It was a state grant.
Is it called a SIPL? Is it? No.
I don't know, it's changed so much. There used
Yeah.
to be a lot of state money in early childhood, and it's gone away.
Right. So, I mean, there's not going to be a great solution, but it will impact, it probably will have a lesser impact to Leiden and to Warwick, because they share preschool and kindergarten, and the district supports full-day kindergarten. So they have a teacher in that classroom anyhow, but in Bernardston and Northfield, they have a dedicated preschool room, program, staffing, and so, that's something down the road, I think, sooner than later. I think the committee has to either do a subcommittee or talk about it.
CNP subcommittee, curriculum personnel subcommittee.
This would probably be more budgetary, I think, and having the preschool teachers have input into the programming part of it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We are required by law to have a program, or to
Right.
serve children once they turn 3, if they have a disability of any
Right.
kind, right? So we have, and Massachusetts requires us to serve them in integrated setting. That's
Right.
best practice. That's why we have public preschool programs.
Right. There's a lot
Yeah,
of schools will go for a half-time,
Right.
They just don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, a lot of the grants are drying up, though. They really are. I mean,
No, I'm
this
just
is
saying,
very
it's-
few.
The state wants to require it, but they don't want to pay for it, as usual.
Right. So that's a preschool. Building fees, I really don't do much of anything with that. I think that it's predominantly at Pioneer, and I think that they have a group that talks about when they charge people for the use. I'm not sure if this charges, so that just kind of grows. I wish all the rest of these funds would just grow like that, and we don't really spend it, but that is another pool of money that you have access to. And then Circuit Breaker is in very tough shape. It's negative $52,083 ending last year. Last year we had, some unexpected out-of-district students. We had a huge increase in special needs transportation, and so the plan this year is it looks like we'll take $70,000 in from Circuit Breaker this year, and the goal for us is to just not touch that at all and get it back into a positive. So that's this kind of in a nutshell, and if you just let me know later who might want to see that overall spreadsheet, because I think that would be, for people that are tech savvy, a good thing to see.
I heard you and then I saw Sue, so.
Well, the first thing is, I think everybody should get it, and if you don't want it, you should let Ruth know. And if you're not tech savvy, it could be saved as a PDF, and then you could see the data, but you don't have to mess with the formulas. My first point is my next question, the $77,000 a month of school choice revenue, is that times 12 months, or is that times, the towns pay 5 quarterly payments?
No, we get it year round, but I think we get a larger sum at the end. So it's been kind of the same dollar amount for a while.
Okay, so we extrapolate that out, and
David, what line item are you referring to?
He's talking about
In which section?
right here, the school
The
choice.
revenues?
Oh, where'd it go? School choice down here. You know how I said it was a bigger dollar amount, 152.
He's talking about $77,000.
it's not on the paper.
It's not on
Ruth
the
Not
said
on
it.
the paper, Ruth.
I made a
verbally
reference
said
to
it.
that.
Okay.
That's what we are typically getting monthly.
So my question after asking that specifics is how adequate, how sufficient is that revenue source to offset retiree health insurance? Because the numbers here don't tell us anything except that we're not.
Right.
So 77 times 12 is whatever it is, and the retiree health insurance bill that we're going to cover with that, do we have enough money? Will we have enough money?
In the past, it's going to be close this year. In the past, we had about, one year we had 200,000, and then we, used it to offset we had enough and then some surplus. Last year, we had enough and a little bit of surplus. And so this year, we really don't have a surplus, but I'm thinking that we might, be able to make it. We have the,
If you could push that extrapolation out
Yeah, I can.
now, I mean, it might be wrong, it might be right, but it'd be good to know.
Is that nested underneath the cells?
not this part yet, because I have to get the, most of this stuff goes through payables. So, but I can do a compare and contrast out of last year. So looking at last year's funds and their opening balances and what went through, and then, so that'll give us a pretty good
Well,
idea.
except we have perhaps more retirees, the
Are there more
9%
retirees
increase in
this year?
health insurance
I don't-
premiums, and changing enrollment numbers in turn. So I really think that needs to be fine-tuned more. I was told by a rep from the tech school that they don't believe the state's revenue figures, and they use the prior years. Well, that works when you don't think you're going to get as much as you don't think things are going to grow, or the governor or the legislature's estimated cherry sheets are a little inflated and it all gets whacked out, So, but it's not safe in our situation to look at last year's expenditures, because we really need to project this year's,
But
not
I'm just
just
saying,
on
I'm
last
just saying the
year's.
retirees, because we have that data in the office. So I'll take a look and I'll
Well,
make
adjust it for the new premium figures, and my last concern
Yeah.
is where is school lunch on this? I mean, is it in the general fund under that first grouping? If it were reflected, would it be in the funds at the bottom with some three-digit number ahead of it?
No,
Where does, I mean, where does the,
School, it's school choice lunch is there, we can put it on this,
it's a general fund activity? It's not a.
no, it's not a general fund, it's a different, it's a revolving account. With this, and all the grants are in the revolving, I didn't know how deep you wanted to get
Well,
in this.
it's one of our biggest black eyes, and we really ought to
Okay.
have it lined out
So
here.
you want the grants included in this as well?
I'm concerned about school choice
It is some of them aren't used.
and school lunch. Those are $1 million something and a $200,000 plus deficit that we need to attend to.
What I'll do too is I'll send you out electronically a list of all the other funds out there, and even some of the,
Okay, I guess my suggestion is that it
It
become
will.
a line on this truncated
become a
summary
line.
report,
Right.
that it's that important.
okay.
Martha, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, I just had a question about the figure at the top for elementary supplied books. Unexpended, $280,708. That can't be
Where is
right.
it?
Elementary supply
Elementary
books.
That were
About
not
2/3 of
expended.
the way down under the top section.
Elementary,
Looks like it should be 28, not 280.
Over here.
probably 28, yeah.
Ah,
Elementary
okay.
supply books, says
74.
280,000 unexpended.
Thank
obviously.
you.
That's
Sorry.
Okay, just a wrong figure.
So what is the figure?
What is the
you think?
figure?
Well, it would be
Subtract
28,000,
39
yeah.
from 75.
Yeah.
40,
Yeah, it
35.
should be down.
Right, the 28.
25, right?
Um,
I don't know. 75,
Yeah.
40.
So
Okay.
does that lower this 4 million by a
$35,000.
quarter million?
Right. Okay, so I'll add this stuff and I will
Well,
send it
that's
to
gonna make a
you.
difference with this figure here.
Yeah, it's
That's
gonna
what
make a
you
big
said.
difference. Yes,
Huge
Sue?
difference.
Sue?
Right, but,
Oh, wait.
right, at this moment, that's not gonna affect what we need to do next, which is look at the revenues. Okay?
Sue, did you
Um,
have
It's
something?
just, it's nice to have accurate figures.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So school choice goes both ways, right?
Correct,
When we lose children, we have to pay out, and when we get children from other places, we receive.
correct.
Where is the accounting for what we're paying out?
Right here. The very bottom line, it says school choice and charter.
Charter, okay.
$707,937. That's for all the kids that leave our school choice and the kids that go to charter school.
Okay,
Okay, so we put that in the budget, but we keep the revenues in a different fund.
okay. And can you give us an accounting of, I mean, I was looking at some of our enrollment data that was presented last fall,
Uh-huh.
and it looked like over a 5-year period, we only had 10 kids choice out from the data that was on that table. How many kids do we have choicing out now?
I don't know. I can get you that. I actually got today, I got the last 3 years from, of all the kids, where they went and coming and going. The thing I found out that was interesting is everywhere I've worked, we've had like a registrar that would take in all the register and have the kids leave. We don't do that. So I don't know how accurate we're gonna be able to do, because at the elementary levels, I guess some students that choose to go to another school or choice out, they'll give them the records right from the elementary school instead of moving them up. So,
I do.
so I need to get a handle on that, and I think it's something that we can take a look at. Sorry.
I've been told that by November, you can see it online, because the state creates an accounting of who's where.
Right, yes, it's
Find it.
October 1st numbers, or, I mean, it's a little easier to do it, but, so, did you all get this cut sheet?
Okay.
Oh,
I
sorry, David.
just want to do one more thing. Can I
Yes,
do
you
this?
can.
Okay.
I got one more question.
Wait a second. I have a paper here from the 21st of September, and then another one that was handed tonight, which is only a week apart. And the figures seem to differ as the budgeting figures. I have gone through my two documents, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, no, 6, that are not the same. The encumbered figures are the same, the unexpected figures are the same, but the budget figures seem to be different. Is there a reason?
Yes. So in an effort to not have to look at all the lines, I grouped things. I grouped all the different lines and put them in the category the best I thought they fit. And that's why I thought it was important for you.
These are the same.
Huh?
These are the same categories.
The same categories, but underneath that is your whole budget sheet. Your whole budget's
If I could see
behind
it.
it. And it
So
was
did
just,
things move between,
yeah, there's
things
some.
got
Right.
reallocated from one section to the other. That's why we need the nested.
Right, and I think that if you want to look at this deeper, that we can get that spreadsheet up and we can kind of go through the lines, and you may disagree, like, where I put the resource officer, or where I did something else that may not fit in these lines. Don't forget, this is the first time we're doing this, so if you want to expand these categories out, look more deeply into each of the lines, that's fine. It's just, this was an effort for you to be able to kind of look more globally and not down in the weeds of the budget. But again, this is work in progress, and it's what the committee would, what they'd like to see.
Fred would like to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, so typically what's going on right here should be done in a budget subcommittee, where you look at all the underlying figures, you examine this information, you make sure that it's accurate, and then it comes before the school committee. So in this particular circumstance, the budget subcommittee wasn't able to meet because of a lack of a quorum. However, that has to occur. So if people aren't available on the budget subcommittees for particular meeting dates, that has to change. One of the primary recommendations I made in July was that there had to be regular meetings of the budget subcommittees, and they have to examine this particular data before it comes to the school committee, and there needs to be regular and routine meetings of the subcommittee throughout this year because of your budget issues. So a meeting not occurring is really a huge problem. And it's demonstrated tonight because the questions that are being asked should have been reviewed in the subcommittee and look at the underlying data that came up with these particular calculations. So my first suggestion is that you get a budget subcommittee meeting as soon as possible where that occurs.
And look at that spreadsheet she's talking about, when you're talking
Yep.
about see the underlying numbers, okay.
Some people have asked if that was an open meeting law violation because the meeting had been posted in all the towns and then it just didn't happen. And, the sheet was sent out and canceled.
No, that's not an open meeting law violation. You can cancel a meeting, you just have to indicate on the posting or the locations where the meeting is going to occur that it's been canceled, and sometimes you put the reason, such as lack of a quorum, but that's not an open meeting law violation. But the point that I'm making is quite a bit different from that, which is you have to have the meetings.
Exactly.
That you can't have, excuses, I can't make it. You have to have these meetings. It's important. You have to have them regularly.
Can I ask
Well,
you a
regularly,
question?
regularly.
Like we met the week before.
Yeah, so that regularly depends really on what condition your budget's in. So it could be quarterly, but if in fact there's more work that needs to be done, such as right now, because you're going to be in the budget seats, and it could be every other week. It's whatever's required. A lot of places do it quarterly until they get to, really crunching the numbers on the budget, and then they'll meet like every other week. It varies from location to location, but it's a critical component because all of the legwork and background work between administration and the budget subcommittee should be done in that forum. And of course, that's an open session. So budget subcommittee meetings are an open session.
Which they have been.
Robin?
I was just asking because I think, you know, when you say regularly, to some people that might mean every other day.
Well, the issue is people that have the time and expertise to commit to the meetings. Because I don't know if you had other cancellations, this might have been the only one. But I'm just indicating that it's extremely important that that occurs.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I was at the budget subcommittee meeting last week, and
No,
it was last week. I still have a question on the revenue of the regional transportation, why it's off 303,000. Could you explain again?
Because the state didn't give us the money.
With the state, that's what the
Can the
state.
superintendent answer the question?
That's it in a nutshell. The
But
state.
that's basically not true,
What
because
do
I
you mean
looked
it's
on the
not-
DOR website. So where did the $784,000 budget number come from? Is that an estimate or an actual
Has to be an estimate.
She did it at 70.
figure
Budget's
from the
a-
state?
Huh?
No.
Is that what we got from the state in fiscal year 17, or an estimate?
We got
17.
18 estimate.
Yes.
And how did
We're
you
at
come up with
18.
that? Because it was $300,000 more than we've ever received.
Well, actually, you know what, I'll give you the sheet. They actually gave us less than they have before. The year before, remember that it was said, oh, well, you really underestimated what we might get. And I work off the sheets from the state that we get. You can go right on to the.
Well, I looked on the website, and fiscal year 17, our reimbursement was $583,000. Fiscal year 16 is the number we probably would have been working for to come up with that 18 estimate, because 17 hadn't been finalized yet, was $467,000.
But that's.
So we overstated that amount by almost $300,000,
So wait,
and that's where the deficit
John,
is.
just a second. You can't look at past years because the legislature changes the reimbursement on that regional transportation all day long. So if you need to go to the state numbers and look at how they're voting on it. And at the end, they dropped it. So it's not like you don't look at past years, because if we had done that, we would have totally spent, put too much money in there, because we got quite like an 80% reimbursement, where this year it was like 50%. You cannot look back and see a trend in regional transportation. It just doesn't work.
I don't think the state's gonna give us $300,000 extra than they ever have before. It's just not realistic. If you look at the averages, I went back 8 years, our lowest was 326, our highest was 505. Last year was 583, so I don't see how you can realistically come up with a $784,000 figure. It's overestimated by $200,000 or $300,000.
It doesn't really work that way. It's like, the state gives us all sorts of categories. It goes up and down all the time. You look at the revenues and see how it's progressing over their voting. You don't go from year to year. Plus, it depends on, how many buses do we still have? How many, kids are we? It's just not quite so simple to look back at a trend. Everybody I know, we look at what's going on with the state at that time. We pay attention closely to when they, give us the estimates, and there's like 4 times a year, and you pay close attention to that. In addition, I don't look at this just in isolation. I look at it in the scope of the other types of things that in our budget that I think may or may change, which is why I wanted to go over this sheet
Madam
with you.
Chairman, we get all these calls that we want to hear from the chairman, and the very people who ask for it are talking over Jack.
Yes, Jane?
John, I have a question. As part of the budget subcommittee, this $784,000 is what we budgeted for this year, based on the number of students and how we had to transport them.
How can you make an estimate on something that's not based on previous year's reimbursement from the state?
We based it on what our-
$300,000 higher than our previous highest amount.
I think,
No, this was based,
Doesn't-
excuse me,
doesn't
John,
make sense.
this was based,
let's
this
not
was
go
ba-
back and forth.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify. I think
Get recognized first.
I think John is confusing state reimbursement with what we estimated our budget would be, what it was actually gonna cost us for transportation for our students this year. And this was the figure that the budget subcommittee came up with. Because the state opted to reimburse us a significant amount less, that's what we don't have any control over.
David?
One tool for budgeting revenue is the state's estimated cherry sheet. And you get towns and schools look at these things and then they apply some kind of filter to them, because if you bite it hook, line, and sinker, you'll rarely see it. And that number changes, and you'll see a House and a Senate and a governor's bill and eventually the Department of Revenue. So that's one tool we have for forecasting revenue. The past is another one. Our expectation of how far short the state's going to do in doing what the law says, which is to fund regional transportation 100%. You got to take it's a difficult number, and it's one you got to watch all the way through the budget process. So it's good you've picked up on this, John. Next year, let's try and pick up on it earlier.
It wasn't even close. I mean, I'm just saying, it was $200,000-300,000.
Yeah, and we were all complicit in it.
Yes.
Pat, I just wanted to recommend, oh, sorry.
No, no,
I just wanted to recommend that we go back to the procedure of having the subcommittee go over all of this in detail and then present it to the full school committee, because that's what's outlined in our procedure policy book. That's what we're supposed to be following. And I think we could go on for a long time.
And
So I think the budget subcommittee should make the recommendation after meeting.
That was the plan last evening.
I know, I
That didn't
understand that, but
happen.
I'm just saying where we are now, I'm just recommending
Any questions?
that
As
the
the chair,
budget-
as chairman of the budget subcommittee, that was our plan last night, and when it didn't happen, we needed to do something to discuss this evening, and then we can pick up the pieces and go to another meeting as soon as possible.
I'm just
Yes, David?
I think this has been very valuable for a number of reasons. We have a recent history of ignoring recommendations of subcommittees at the board level, and this is some of the most complicated stuff that we do. There were a quorum of the school committee at the budget committee, and it felt at times like members who were not on the budget committee in the audience were participating in deliberations, which is unlawful. So this is a lawful chance for this body to talk about this and increase our common understanding and not have a committee more expert coming here and perhaps getting shot down because of a lack of knowledge. It's painful, but I see this as valuable.
Sure.
Just when the date was made for this committee, subcommittee to happen last night, the people that were in the room said that they could be there at the meeting, and then the night of the day of the meeting, the people couldn't be there. So I really don't understand where everybody was coming from. And I wish that we wouldn't quote the law, David, because we have our attorney here, that this person we hired,
He
not
can
you.
shoot me down. In fact, there was a legal
He doesn't have
opinion
to.
letter to the effect.
You don't have to.
The only point I would make, based on what Dave said, is how you run school committee meetings and subcommittee meetings. And that is, you never have to take questions from the public or let the public be part of your discussion, because they are meetings of the school committee, they are meetings of a subcommittee, and no one from the public should speak unless they're recognized by the body. So if it's interfering with the process of a subcommittee meeting, then the subcommittee can say, this is our meeting, and you can view that meeting, but it's not a public hearing. There is only one time that you have to have a public hearing, and that's the budget. And that is a public hearing where the public gets to participate. But at any other meeting, it's at the discretion of the group. It is not automatic.
Okay. do we want to
I
continue?
just had one
Yes.
lingering question.
Okay.
When you talked about quarterly meetings at least of the budget committee, I have been going online and just looking at sort of financial manuals for school districts to so how do things typically function. And one of the things that I noticed was it was pretty consistently recommended that you see an overall comprehensive budget at least quarterly, so that you can monitor the ongoing movement of funds. Is that what you were talking about when you say
Well, it
look at
varies
budget
from
quarterly?
system to system. When I was referring to quarterly, that in the quarterly meetings, the finance subcommittee is examining all the data that exists at that point in time. And many school committees have reports every single month about where the budget is every single month. And the subcommittees will meet when you're preparing the budget frequently every other week. But depending on how well the finances are run in a particular district, sometimes it is only quarterly. So it depends on a lot of factors. You don't have a lot of administrative support in this particular system. So it depends on, how many in some school systems you have a deputy superintendent of finance, and that person has several persons reporting to that person. You don't have that luxury. So that's why the budget subcommittee needs to take on, in-depth role with administration to help in the process of making sure the budget is accurate. And yeah, I do agree with David that I think this discussion has been helpful for the members of the committee and the public, so that it opens up what needs to be examined in a lot more depth. But that should then go to the subcommittee for them to do it, and then report back in some detail to the full school committee. So I think the best thing to do in these meetings is, to the extent possible, not to have extraneous conversations, and just look at the data, study the data, and comment on the data. And the more that's done by the subcommittee itself, the better that meeting will run.
Now that we have subcommittee members here, can we come up with a date that we can all attend? And if my
How
understanding.
about after the meeting? We don't need to put it.
Yeah. Can we do this after the meeting?
I'm not sure come up with a date?
Pick the
Yeah.
date
Yeah.
after.
Pick a date after the meeting.
That's fine, as long as everybody remembers to do it and doesn't skedaddle
Because
off.
it's not an open meeting item.
You don't have to do that in open session.
Okay, now, just so I can understand, our budget subcommittee meetings are open, so if committee members want to come, they can, and if we want to recognize them for comments, we can do that also, is that correct?
You can do that, but it's not the usual process. The usual process is to have the subcommittee, and frequently the chair of the school committee is an ad hoc member. If people want to attend, they can, but they should not actively participate because of what I said before. So you have a small group that's
Right.
supposed to be concentrating on
Exactly.
getting the information right. If you have 10 other people around that want to get involved and start talking about it, then it's going to be very hard to accomplish anything in the meeting.
Right.
So other committee members can be there, but you
Okay.
don't want to end up being the full school committee
Right.
unless you intend it to come before the
Exactly.
full
Unless
school
it's
committee.
posted as a full committee meeting.
Right.
Robin?
I was gonna say, and I'm just gonna throw this out there, but I assume that's general practice for any type of subject.
That's correct.
Yes.
Any type of subcommittee. The purpose of a subcommittee is to do the work for the school committee in a small setting where they can carefully review the information and report back to the school committee. So it's easier to do that if you have a manageable group with expertise to examine the information, then report back. It's supposed to be a work session. It's not supposed to be a dialogue session.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, if you're not on the committee, but you're obviously care and you're engaged, is it appropriate to send your questions, your thoughts, your concerns, your ideas to the chair prior to the meeting? Like how, if you are not on the committee, but you have something you want to add to the conversation, what's the most appropriate way to do that so that you're not interrupting the meeting?
Well, one way you could do that and not run into potential open meeting law violations is to send it to the superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
And the superintendent isn't governed by the open meeting law.
Okay.
But the issue is you cannot deliberate amongst each other.
Right,
And the
not a
concern is,
conversation, but a direct, like, just thinking about these things.
Bullet points.
Yeah.
of
yeah,
that
the
kind of
the
thing.
best way to do that is to send it to the superintendent. The superintendent brings it to the subcommittee, and you should not copy other members of the school committee on your
Okay.
communication.
Yes.
I just wanted to read the first sentence of the description of what a budget subcommittee is. It explains all that perfectly. Has authority from the school committee to examine and screen all requests and proposals for annual budget appropriations, subject to final acceptance of the capital and operating budgets by the full committee. So I look upon it as a working group. You make your recommendation. Am I right about that?
That's
Subcommittee makes
correct.
its recommendation. And at that point, of course, to your point, Sue, anybody on the committee can.
Right, it
What
might have
not
been,
take
it
the
might have been more
recommendation
helpful
or-
earlier, you know, who knows?
I understand
but
that you
yeah,
wanted to come
yeah,
up for
yeah,
discussion.
Yeah, just
But-
so we're not interrupting a meeting, but if I'm,
But it
if
will-
I'm engaged and I have thoughts or ideas. okay.
But you don't have to accept the recommendation of the budget subcommittee. My last year on it was not accepted at all. The
Right.
budget subcommittee
Right.
got it.
But I don't think you're
But it
necessarily
might
saying
help
different
that.
things
Right, it
because
might
I
you're
think-
saying
I think we're saying
it is the work of the subcommittee, but
To hash it out.
the full school committee members giving their opinions and sending it, so
Absolutely.
it could be shared with the subcommittee at the meeting. Because again, you don't want
Yeah, 'cause then it's-
violation
Right,
of the open
But-
meeting.
yeah.
Right.
That, what I'm hearing from you is contradictory. Because you said that at a subcommittee meeting, it should be subcommittee, and we can, if we choose, we can not have back and forth
Correct.
with the
The
general audience. And now you're saying we should?
No, I'm not saying you should.
Okay, but are you saying it's when we bring it to the whole school committee?
When you bring it to the full school committee, then the full school committee can talk about the budget that you brought to them. It comes with a recommendation to the full school committee. And then the school committee will usually ask you, what is the basis of your recommendation? What was the criteria that you examined? And then you can say, well, what about this, that, and the other thing? So that happens after all the legwork has been done. Make sure that all the figures are clearly understood and accurate and brought before the full school committee. It's a lot of work being on a budget subcommittee, but the two primary things that a school committee does is policy and budget.
Okay.
And, that's what it says in the law, and when the MASC puts on their seminars, that is the primary role of a school committee. And the running of the school system is the responsibility of the superintendent.
Should the policy committee meet as frequently?
No, I don't think it's necessary for the policy committee to meet that frequently. Probably the best thing, if you have an up-to-date or somewhat up-to-date
How about
policy
not
book.
up to date at all?
Okay, well, that's problematic. So one of the things that you could do, if you have pretty much no policy book,
Correct.
you go to the MASC.
I did.
Yeah, you
We're
download everything they have from the MASC. The MASC routinely updates the policies, so they have a lot of updated policies right now. And then what I see many policy subcommittees do is go through a letter, each month. So you start with the A and go right through to, I don't know how far it goes now, I or J. No, it goes maybe to L.
I think.
But
yeah.
it may take, 2 months to go through a particular policy. But you must have a policy book now.
No,
Yes, we do. We have a
we
big
have,
binder.
and we've been working on it every other week for all last year. I mean, it was,
But we didn't really address the policies. We looked at the handbooks, but
Handbooks.
we really haven't addressed,
Yeah.
we're really out of compliance with regard to the book.
but
And,
we're working on it.
yeah, but that's another meeting we should set
Well,
up
maybe
in
you
the
shouldn't meet
afternoon.
as frequently.
Can we, I'm finding this all very helpful, but I'm also looking
That's
at the time.
Yes.
We've been here for 2 hours and we still have
Exactly.
much on our agenda to
Can we
continue.
just do this next so that we can
Yes.
get a handle on this?
Yes. We're to the budget cut page, if people are wondering what she was pointing at.
So here are the ways that the admin team and I looked at possibly that we're going to be okay with the budget. First thing is the health and life insurance and dental. We budgeted that at $2,233,269. It's coming in at $1,952,517, so it's an actual savings of $280,752.
Yes, Jim.
Is that savings due to a difference in the policy, or is that with the reduction of staff?
So the reason I budgeted it the same was that we were anticipating a 10% increase on our health insurance. But when I looked at all the people that would potentially be RIF lower at the scale, I realized that we would probably be okay if we just level funded it. We didn't, decrease it anymore, but that we should be able to hit our budget, which did actually happen. What I hadn't anticipated was that there would be some teachers that chose to go out, more senior teachers choosing to go out to other districts and get new jobs. And it was of those people that left, about 50% of them actually took some of the more expensive health care and the other things. And so I think that between those two things is why we have the savings of $280,000.
So that $280,000 savings is with those that chose to leave and with those that got RIF.
Right, and then
Reduction.
other people that moved around for whatever reasons. I mean, some people leave to go somewhere else or
Well, no,
move or
I
whatever.
understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it was
all-
definitely impacted by the reduction in force last year. Professional development is budgeted at $45,000. Proposed change is pretty much to cut $31,142 and freeze professional development. And the reason for this is that it's not people going out on professional development. That cost is not huge, although, with the contract you can get meals and travel and all that. But the biggest impact is on our sublines, and our sublines are out of control. We've already expended a lot last year. Again, probably attributed to the reduction of force. The Pioneer line was something at like 80-something thousand, which is well over our budget. So I'm really concerned about the substitute lines. And, this is one way that we're thinking about it. Again, we don't have to make any decisions tonight. I think you recommend to put this back at the subcommittee. I just wanted to give this to you so you could see that we're not like sinking ship and we don't have any money, because that's just not the case. Let me go the rest of these. Record retention.
Ruth, I would like to
Oh,
address
sorry, go
that
ahead.
one first.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Proposed change is the same as the net savings.
Yeah, because the
That's the
change is that we already spent some of this. So it was at 45, we've already spent some, and now.
So that wasn't the budgeted figure.
No, that was what had already changed, that was where we were, so that's the number that we could cut.
Okay, maybe
So
we
we're
should
still
have, we should have the budget
we already
figure.
Right, and I understand that.
We can change these any way you want, you know,
Suggesting-
people look at it differently. The last line is really, like, so the next line, record retention, 10,000 is budgeted. We're proposing to change the 10,000, which is cut it, and so that will actually, save $10,000.
Didn't we already vote to cut that in July?
I don't.
Yeah, I thought we did.
We did, we cut it. It already should be out of there. But
Oh, no, didn't that all get reversed?
no, only the SRO got reversed.
But I don't think the figure ever showed up anywhere, did it?
Yeah.
I don't know,
It's
maybe
still
we
in the
can
budget.
check, maybe we
Anyhow,
can
so,
check
all right,
it.
so that's one you accounted for. Northfield Elementary School has $3,668 in books that they don't need. They've purchased everything they need, so they are generously giving that back. And we're gonna look into cutting another bus. We think that we might be able to work that out. Some of our buses are really not too many kids, a few kids on them.
I thought we
And-
weren't gonna have late buses, but we do.
Right, well, they,
There are only 2 late buses, am I correct about that?
yes,
And they go to the.
Two towns
correct.
each, right, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So they've been reduced.
Yeah.
right,
Thank
right,
you.
they have been reduced.
Yeah.
So with the sheet, it looks like $385,562 at this point, with suggestions that you go back to the budget subcommittee, but I just didn't want you to go another whole, period of time thinking that we were in big, deep trouble still. It might not be this, it could be something else, but it looks like we're gonna be able to get through the year comfortably, and then maybe, if we're lucky, have some extra money.
Thank you.
Yes,
You're
Peggy.
welcome.
Can we date the document, and then if
Let's do
we
that.
change the existing document, we can put amended and the new date, but when you look through your folder and there's,
Right.
you know,
Every
4 or
document
5
should
of
be
the same, and you don't know the sequence.
Yeah, me too.
All
I
right.
do too, I would write it at the top now.
All right. Oh, we
Maybe a
can,
footer or a header,
Yeah.
just.
And to me, this is really difficult to figure because I need to know the original budget figure and then what we change, and then the net savings. And I have a hard time following this apart. I may be really dense.
No, everybody looks at these things differently, so I think give it to subcommittee, and then they'll do the best, because everybody will have a different viewpoint on it.
Okay, all right. Yes, Sharon.
One figure we haven't seen yet, and I don't know if you have it there, but it's what have we saved in the staff reduction? That figure was gonna be.
Is this it?
Salary comparison, is this the
Yeah,
one?
that's the salary comparison is there, but again, this is so many.
That's kind of,
It's general, but it tells us. It's general, but it tells us.
I mean, you
For
get,
each
you
school.
get that sheet,
where?
you get the personnel payroll, from every budget, every meeting. You get an overall, here the, yeah, that one. And so if
That's
we
the
can.
staff.
Right.
Right,
Doesn't have
right.
I'm talking about the
Figures.
savings,
Right.
you get the figures out there.
Well, so.
Teacher salary is on the right there.
So when I send you your Excel sheet, you can go down here and you'll be able to see when you pull it all out, you're gonna be able to see the difference.
That would be great.
Okay, I'll have you point it out to me.
Okay.
Maybe we can figure
I
it
mean,
out.
there's a lot.
But that's
I
the
mean,
figure we've been asking for, Ruth, and we haven't seen it
Well, because
specifically. And that's why we keep asking for it, and when we don't get
It's
it,
not-
it gets extremely
Right,
frustrating.
but it's not quite that simple that you just say this reduction of force, because there are more people in. So does that mean that there's less of a, that we just say this dollar amount left, but all this money came in? It's just not quite that simple.
But there is a way you can let us know what the basic reduction in staff savings.
The net,
Huh?
the net.
But honestly, there wasn't, and this is here's another sheet for you. If you look at,
I just want a number. don't
I know,
want a
well,
sheet.
but this tells it, because it talks about the, right. It talks about, okay, that there was a reduction, but then we have
Another sheet,
a,
I knew there was.
we still have more staff. So yes, it has been a moving target all summer for our office staff to get a handle on 60-plus people coming and going.
And it has been for the committee to get the figure.
That's right.
So, I
um,
don't feel sorry for it.
Oh, so these
Because
are
we've been
instructional
wanting that
systems,
figure,
okay.
it seems like we should have it, you know?
Oh, thank you. And here's another one for you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the IAs.
Oh. good.
Right.
Okay.
So this will give you, so it's not,
Well, the one I had
Well,
was
this one shows a
IA.
comparison of last year to this year.
right.
Oh,
right.
okay.
And it's the
All right.
numbers,
Oh,
but it's
that's
not the
good.
dollars behind it, because then we have to go figure out who those people were that left in. So,
No, yeah.
oh yeah, here you go. There's more. So, I
This
know,
wake us
well,
up.
that's, Chris wanted us all to wake up. Okay, so maybe we should move this to the budget subcommittee
Yes.
after? I mean, it's, I think, oh, she has another question.
Peggy,
If we're gonna use this document for the budget subcommittee that we're gonna try to schedule.
Yes.
We need a date.
Yep.
Can we use it, an Excel spreadsheet, so put the spent, so that this balances? Because
It is in Excel.
Yeah.
It's in Excel.
do we need to see the columns that are missing?
I said I'm gonna send you the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's all in Excel.
And the other thing, under revenue, the budget, I think that's confusing for people. I mean, listening
having a
to
hard
We
Jean,
can change it any way you
that's what
want.
I'm saying, if it was considered estimated revenue rather than labeled budget.
Budget, yeah.
If we stuck an ED on the end, budgeted.
Okay, we can do it any way you want. I really,
Look, you
Okay.
can laugh all you want.
Yeah, really,
Thanks for
that's
that. It wouldn't be,
disrespectful.
it wouldn't be a meeting without being chastised, so.
Yeah.
Now I can check that off.
Fire.
But,
okay. All right,
I
but
think Jean was confused by this, what that amount, the 784, 626, was your estimate of anticipated transportation reimbursement, not.
I wasn't confused.
Well, your explanation then.
I said that that's what we budgeted for fiscal 18 for transportation.
Right, but it was 70% yes, and anticipated
I don't know what the side is.
reimbursement.
Oh, the reimbursement, we don't
Let's,
know.
okay, let's us, after our meeting, decide when we're gonna meet. And I think we also need to think about when we can have a policy subcommittee meeting. So maybe policy members can also sit tight so we can schedule a meeting. We have a Heart Committee report. Are you reporting on Heart Committee or is somebody, oh, Bill is, okay, great.
So the Heart Committee wanted to kind of give a brief update over the summer.
Ginger's here too, Bill.
Yeah.
You want to sit up there?
The district agreement.
We secured
Sit up there with him.
Talk about
well, go ahead, I'll sit right there.
coordinating some of the expenses.
You look good as a group.
Sort of exploring all these different out-of-the-box type stuff. Which sounds like it might be interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Bill, I was just,
Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
go for it.
Okay, so I'm Ginger Robinson from Leiden.
Tony Mateo from Northfield.
So we just want to check in with you and also the community about a little bit about what we've been doing. So you know that we got a grant, we checked in about that last time. We're going to spend that money to hire a researcher, data collector sort of person that will help us gather information. We're currently working on the RFP, which is a request for proposals. So then we'll put that out to firms who do this sort of thing.
And they will come back and say, yes, we can do that for the price, for the money that you have, or no, we can't, and then maybe we'll have to narrow things down. Let's see, we're hoping to do some advocacy work. I think it's interesting tonight, 2 topics have come up. One is the transportation costs. The state does not fund transportation especially to rural districts like they should. It's hard, we cover a lot of miles. So we're hoping to push the governor, our representatives. There are a lot of people doing this, we're not the only ones. There's some small town summits that happen, some towns further west. They're sort of doing the same thing. Also funding pre-K. We would like to see more money for pre-K. I'm sure everyone in this room would like to see that. And we're hoping to soon, we're working on a process for starting to meet with our towns, see where the community is at, see what their ideas are, inform people kind of what is going on with the Heart Committee and also larger issues that face rural districts and also face other rural districts around the state and also, frankly, around the country. And get some written materials for the select boards, for the community, for you guys, and get an email account where if you have ideas about the long-term vision for our communities and how we educate our kids, we can get some communication going on, and I think that's pretty much where we're at right now.
So this request for proposal, we've got a certain amount of money, and we're going blind here. We don't know how much that's going to get for us. So we're going to send it out. Hopefully we'll get what we need. The Heart Committee has been paring down the questions that are going to be in the request for proposal, hopefully to get it within our budget. And but that's going to take a while. We're almost there. I think by our next meeting we'll probably have it done. And we got to get it, send it out for whatever 30, 60 days, get some responses back, and then work on it from there and see where we're at. But one of the things we would be doing in the meantime, while this process is going on, is hopefully having some meetings in all of our towns to get citizens input, things that perhaps we hadn't thought about or that people are very concerned about. One of the things we want to put into the RFP is that after we get citizens input from all of these places, we may change what we want to do. And we want to make this appropriate for schools like us. I mean, we don't want statewide or national stuff. We're taking Boston and Springfield, et cetera. We're hoping to get information from rural districts, both in the state and out of the state. And then we'll go from there. We'll get a report, bring it to the towns, bring it to the select board, bring it to you guys, and then go from there. And that's where we're at. And hopefully we'll come up with something good.
Exciting to hear all this.
Thanks. Any questions that we might answer? Yes.
I just wondered if there was any way that you could, do you have minutes to your meetings that could be
We do,
sent?
and they are posted, I think, on the Bernardston
Oh, that's where you're going.
webpage.
Okay.
Every time we have a meeting.
They are, okay,
And
good.
certainly all our meetings are posted in all our towns.
Yeah, I know they're. I didn't realize that they
There are
were
open
posted.
meetings. Anybody who wants to come is certainly welcome to add their input.
Bernardston website, okay.
Yeah, but they're on that all the information is on there. I don't know about the other towns' websites, but it is on that.
Okay, that's pretty
Yes.
easy to go to.
Are you still looking or planning on looking at the regional agreement?
That's part of it, but we kind of put that on the back burner because we don't know what this group that we hopefully get will come into. They may have some things that should be in the district agreement, or they think should be in the district agreement, or they're in district agreements of towns like us, or districts like us. So, you know, you did give us some information about that you got from the state as to what was wrong with ours right now. So there will be some recommendations for amending or bring it up to date, the district agreement, yes. But that's not that's gonna be after we get more information. We don't have enough information right now to say, yes, we should do this, no, we shouldn't do this, or whatever.
Thanks, because I know how dedicated you guys are. Every other week is a lot of meetings. So,
We have
thank
been
you.
going every other week, so.
I know. Thank you.
Next meeting is on the 11th of next month.
Yeah, feel free to come to our meetings, any of you.
Or the next meeting, my next meeting, by the way, will be at
Northfield.
the Northfield
Town
Town
Hall.
Hall. So I'm pretty sure that's where we finally settled on, but it will be posted.
Nice.
I have an alternative meeting spot of the Northfield Library if that doesn't work out. So it'll be one of the two places on the 11th at 6:30.
Thank you.
Any other
Any
questions?
questions of them? No,
Okay.
guess not. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now we're to our principals' reports, and as I look at the time, maybe they can be short and sweet. Does that sound all right? How about with Warwick? I see a nodding head there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I feel a bit like Robin Williams, a little light relief on a difficult meeting here to sort of give the troops a lift. So the year at Warwick has started very well. We have, in fact, more children in Warwick than have been in Warwick since I arrived. And we have many new children this year. And we're very fortunate to have the same experienced, fabulous group of teachers working with our children. And there's been a lot of learning, a lot of routines being set. I can't tell you, I read to the kindergarten class and they sat in the most beautiful circle and raised their little hands when they wanted to speak today. Oh boy, it didn't look like that 2 weeks ago. So we're making good progress. We had our open house last week at this time. It was well attended. It was a very nice event. I'm pleased to say we had many, many families, and we even had quite a few grandparents this year, which was very, very nice. We started Second Step, which, if you remember, was in the budget last year and was a significant outlay, and teachers have been working on the professional development for that, and they have started in their classrooms, and I would say very successfully. And finally, our garden club did their harvest. We have a nice big round load of potatoes that they pulled out of the ground the other day, and we're trying to figure out exactly how we're going to use those, and 3 ginormous cabbages. So big doings in Warwick.
How many students do you have this, Elizabeth? How many students is there at Warwick?
59 students.
Excellent. Yoo-hoo. All right, I think, Gail, we're going to talk to you later, so maybe we can, yeah, Megan is up. You know, if you don't, do we have to have him come up? Yeah, probably to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So we also had a great start to the year, and we are all fully up and running. We have 100, I'm going to say 88, but it might be 86 students. Yes. So, which is also somewhat breaking even at this point, but was an increase over what we were anticipating based on our larger 6th grade class graduating last year. Our open house is next Thursday night from 6 to 7. And I just want to talk about also, just to piggyback on what Elizabeth said, we also are up and running with the Second Step Bullying Prevention Program. So that's the updated version that we've been able to purchase. We did some training on one of our Friday PD days, in-house training on that. And so teachers have begun that. In addition to that, we had Pippi Kessler join us for one of our Fridays, and she talked about evaded topics. So our staff got excited about that, and we're using that in conjunction with the Second Step, looking at how to address things that come up that are not necessarily in that curriculum, but to add on to that, and collecting resources to address things that come up that we need to know how to address in an appropriate way. So there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm around that. We also had a writing assessment training. That's a writing assessment that goes along with the writing curriculum that's been in place, but just really focusing on how to implement that, how to look at that data, and how to use that data to inform instruction. So staff had a half-day training on that and have done those assessments and are looking at that data as we speak.
What was the description of Pippi's topics?
Evaded topics.
Evaded.
So things that may, that adults may find difficult to know how to address when they suddenly come up. Gender issues, religion, race, and when they come up, it's typically not in a positive manner, and they need to be dealt with in various ways. So she gave a lot of strategies for how to do that. Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, we have, not officially on the schedule yet, but we will begin our monthly all-school meetings in early in October, and that's where our 6th grade students lead those meetings, and it's our school community monthly event. So
That's great.
thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Bob, can you tell us about Two Towns?
Sure, I'll just stand from here and
Sounds
shout
great.
out.
Yeah.
Most schools had great starts. We've got 157 kids at Bernardston, 33 at Coral Roads. At Bernardston, we had a great welcome back barbecue on September 11th, and nearly everyone showed up, including grandparents and extended family. It was a great event. Last night was the Bernardston open house, and likewise, probably about a 99% turnout. Coral Roads open house is next Wednesday night at 5:30. We've already had one walking field trip at Bernardston. 3rd grade went down to the Bernardston Historical Society yesterday. On Monday, everyone at Coral Roads will be heading over to the town library to explore there. And the next big event coming up will be the Scarecrow in the Park with the Bernardston Kiwanis. And there was a great article in the paper this morning about it, and I know they're going to be supporting schools in the Florida Keys, and it's really great. And I know they'll also be supporting some of the local classrooms around here too. But it's hard to believe we've already squeezed this much into 4 weeks of school. It was 4 weeks ago yesterday that we just started.
Thanks.
Can I?
You can.
Just real quick. As president of the Bernardston Kiwanis, I just want to just say a couple of quick things, I promise. The first thing is, if you didn't read the article, please come down to Scarecrow in the Park. We got together with the Kiwanis Club of Key Largo in Florida to supply school supplies for all the kids that were affected by Hurricane Irma down there. So come by October 21st, 22nd, that whole weekend there. The Friday night, the 20th, there's a play, tickets are on sale, so that's all. Thanks.
That's great, thank you. Special education.
Well, I already handed out the Sharon Wood asked for that. So basically, and I gave away even my own copy of it.
I have an extra one for you.
So, but I've looked at those numbers over and over again. It breaks it down between classroom IAs and one-to-one IAs. I did not include people who had like halftime cafeteria and halftime, or custodians. So ironically, when you look at that, we come out about the same in terms of total IAs. A few less classroom IAs. So, that's the information you wanted, so you can compare it, look at it, and if you have any questions, feel free to come.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
And this says athletic director report, but I got a note from Gina and she's not available, so got a family thing that came up. We are now to old business, and Sue, you had, I didn't want you to forget it. Oh, yes.
Is Jean not around? I thought I saw her earlier. She's right here.
Oh, I didn't see her.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's why I didn't see you. I just hadn't seen you at all. Excuse me.
Hide behind the post.
I know, she was smart.
I got the comfy chair. So a quick update on Pioneer. Again, like all the other schools, we had an excellent start to the school year. We had a wonderful group of parents who did a very special opening day for us, greeting students with balloons and snacks on their opening, and teachers with balloons and snacks on our opening day. So that was a great way to start the school year. We welcomed quite a crew of new students and all sorts of, not only our 7th graders, but new students to the building throughout. We welcomed 10 new faculty to our team this year who have been bringing a lot of new energy and excitement and lots of new interests to share with the students, so we're really excited about that. For the past couple weeks, our band has been out there representing us in the community. They won gold again in the Franklin County Fair. They just participated last week in the Big E and did a wonderful show on the green, which I was able to see, so that was great to see them. And they're settling into a new band director and having some great success out in the community. Our sports teams have also been doing really, really well this fall. I think we have a great lineup of sporting events, and the kids are really excited. The coaches are great. I see lots of great sportsmanship out on the field, a lot of great teamwork, so that's really great to see. I'm hoping next month I'll have some more news to share about how we ended up last year, but one of the things I wanted to share with you is the AP scores for last year came out, and in the prior year, half of our students had earned qualifying scores on the AP, and last year 64% earned qualifying scores on the AP. So we're moving in the right direction in terms of improving student achievement. And then finally, I just wanted to invite you all to homecoming weekend, which is coming up on October 6th and 7th. There's games in the evening on the 6th, and in the afternoon on the 7th. You'll get to see the band, which will also be there showing their talents, and it would be great if you could stop in. And I think people might get a chance to dunk administrators in a dunk tank, is what I'm hearing. Yeah, I hope it's
How many students do we have at Pioneer this year?
I don't know exactly today, but it's somewhere between 360 and 370.
Thanks. I'll put 365, that's close, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Could you share with us a little bit about the fundraiser that the football team is doing every time they get a touchdown or something?
Yes, so that's another thing I forgot to mention. It's I don't know if you all saw the news. Did I send around the link to you guys? Yeah, and then you sent it around. So our football team last year with Coach Worth, who was a new coach to us last year, participated in what was called the Touchdowns for Cancer, I think, challenge. Yeah, and so students all over the country on football teams collect pledges, for X number of dollars for every touchdown we score in the month of September. So our team participated under the leadership of Coach Worth, and they earned over $1,000 for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And there were, I think, only one of 2 teams in Massachusetts. Is that right?
Yeah. That's right.
And they won a nice trophy, which you can see in the case out here. They were named an All-American team for the extraordinary amount of money that they raised for St. Jude's Children's Hospital last year. So that was great. And then, what is it called? Western Mass News came out and did a story on them, which aired last Friday. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks.
A lot of positive things.
Yep, a lot of positive things.
We like that.
Okay.
Thanks, Jean.
Okay.
We see Jake and Ella. Do you guys have stuff that you want to add to that?
Yes, one great thing that the administrators are adding is that next week we're having a club fair where all the high schoolers are going to go to middle schoolers, and we're going to share all the extracurricular stuff that we have, and hopefully we can get some more middle schoolers to join into the awesome clubs that we have.
It sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I just want to add on to athletics, just like some statistics if anyone's interested in that. So football is 2-1, and girls soccer is 4-1, as far as I know, which is awesome.
That's great.
The field hockey team was reduced to a JV team this year, and we plan to come back as a varsity team next year. But we have not lost a game yet on JV, so we'll take that.
Actually, the bus driver has observed that game at away games and said that the middle schoolers who are new to the team
Yeah, the seventh
are really very good
They are
at what
very
they're doing.
Yeah, and it's a good learning year and transition year, especially because half the team we have maybe 5 sophomores and another 7 seventh graders, so it's a young team, but it's good. It's going well. And I just want to mention Spirit Week, which is next week. So we have different days, like Monday's Pajama Day, we have Tuesday Twin Day, Wednesday Tacky Tourist Day, and Thursday is Class Color Day. And Friday will be School Colors Day along with the pep rally. Pep rally is at 12:30 in the gym. So that takes place, and then the homecoming dance is Saturday from 7 to 10, along with the homecoming activities both on Friday night and Saturday.
Great, thanks. Sounds like a fun
Soccer
week.
team's doing well too.
Yes,
There you
well,
go.
soccer. I saw them play
Yeah,
today.
they won tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good academy, right?
Sure.
Is the Jean still here? The Bike
I
Club,
don't-
how's the Bike Club doing?
I don't know, I can't, I didn't even realize she was here, so I don't know if she's still here or not.
She is still.
She's still here, okay.
Any information on the bike club, Jean?
Anyway.
Information on the
Yeah.
bike?
So Alyssa Blum did the bike club last year, was part of the original grant, so she's doing that again. We're writing another grant to get some more money to support that. So
Great.
going strong, and the bicycles are also being utilized in our new PE adventure offering. So I'm gonna be-
Yeah, Ms. Colleen has been taking out students during that class, right?
Right.
Good. All right, shall we move on? So, Sue, did you have something else?
There were just there was a note in the July 13th that I was concerned that we didn't have any money in the budget for hiring a superintendent.
For the search process.
Right, for the search process. So I'm just thinking, as a budget committee, that's a perfect example of what I might want to say is, remember, we have to also do a search, right?
Right.
So don't forget about that. I didn't know if mentoring of new teachers was still in the budget and whether that was still happening.
The only thing about that is that the union made some changes, and so they just sent me a draft this week to review, and in light of, to get an MOU together. So we're
Okay,
at
so
the
just
end
there
of-
might be some expense around that at some point?
Well,
or-
there is expense
It's already
around
in the
it, but
budget?
it's like, to the first year teachers, that's like a no-brainer, but it's year 2 and year 3, which, could be just a group setting and not
Right.
individual.
Right, yeah.
And so it's kind of going back and forth and, getting the numbers squared away and knowing that we have a little bit extra money.
Okay.
So yeah, we're working on it.
Right. There was a note in July where we were talking about guidance counselor changes. And Bill, you had requested that Jean be prepared to address the committee on how students will be adequately served in this area. And now we have 2 and not 1, right? So that, I think that was a concern when we thought we were going down to 1 counselor.
Yeah,
But that's not a concern at this point. So this sort of goes back to us requesting budget. So I'm looking now at August 24th. Yeah. So it's still difficult to see as the budget evolves where the changes are. And when we brought it up before, you've said, well, the program doesn't allow us to do that. So maybe that's something the budget committee can work on, is how can we create something easier to track change over time as the budget
There is a
evolves?
spreadsheet I can send you that
Yeah, just
has,
so you
you
don't
have to open it all up.
Right,
Oh, that's all right.
but
We
just so
could
you
do that.
can see the evolving changes, as opposed to having to know of them all and find them all. I feel like we've asked for that in various ways, and I still feel like we haven't kind of nailed it down. That might be it. Let me just. On August 9th, we talked about our agendas not being clear enough. And for sort of the budget subcommittee, I liked that there was like a one-sentence description, and I talked about this before. And then our agenda tonight still had like one line item.
So, it's, let me tell you how that is.
Okay.
So, Pam takes the sheet out and she looks at past what typically we go on. She gives the agenda to Pat and I, and we can add things, and Pat can, you know, call me if there's questions about them. So I think, you know, maybe we should meet to do the agendas.
Well,
if
yeah,
that makes
and
it
one of the
easier.
things Russell had said was, you know, I can help you do agendas for a while so that they're clearer and it's easier for people to know what's really being covered. And I just want to say, I would really like that to be worked on.
He does. She sends it to
Okay.
him every time, but she doesn't always get feedback.
Okay.
So
as a
Pam's
committee
kind of the
member,
focal
yeah, I just want to
point.
say, could we keep working on that so that the agendas really do describe what we're going to do as best as possible?
Right, so it's really Pat's and my responsibility
yeah.
and not Pam's.
Yeah,
And,
so I'm just bringing it
Right,
up
yeah.
again, because we kind of got good at it, and then it kind of went back to our old, I just kind of would, I think it's important, and it would be helpful in the long run to get better at it. And I think that was it. Thank you.
Okay. I had one which was also piggybacked with yours. I would like to see if we could get some representatives from a couple concerns to help us with the superintendent search. And I'd like to do that as soon as we could, and then meet with, what we've done before is to meet with the chairs of these committees, and we called them a nominating subcommittee just for lack of no other title. I don't know if that's a group that would like to work on doing that or not. I'm looking at Peggy, Robin, Martha, Bill, and David, and myself. One more meeting.
It sure would be nice if people that wanted, you know, were really interested in, you know, the search to be able to be on it from the committee. You know, instead of then we end up at the same thing where a small
Exactly.
group and then, huh?
I would be willing to give up my spot on the committee if someone.
I'd
like
to do it. And
All right.
if I remember from the last time, that was the nominating committee you called it, was only to set up the search committee.
Right, and then we expanded it to citizens from there. So Jim wants to do it. Who else does?
I have a question about the scope. I'm concerned that we're talking about hiring another superintendent, running our own central office. We need to look at all our options, including, and I think the most important long-range option we have is combining central offices with another district. My own vision would be that we do so with not one, but two districts, and that we work to aligning our schedules, aligning our school schedules so that we can use the internet down the road to offer classes in 3 sites at 3 schools, expand our curriculum and our offerings. And I just don't think it's tenable for us to go searching for a new superintendent.
We can discuss that at another
Yeah, we can.
No, who's going to be on the committee? If this committee is just, we're going to do what we've done in the past, not interested. If that's the only thing on the table, that we're going to go start a process and hire a new superintendent, cross my name off.
We're
And
gonna
I
have,
would be your.
yeah, I think we're gonna have to decide if we want somebody for an interim, or if we want, I think what Dave is talking about is a wonderful idea, but I'm not sure that it's something that we can do in a short period of time between when we start working in October to the end of June.
Could I respond to that?
Yes, you can.
At a meeting in the cafeteria, I asked whether it would be appropriate for me as a school committee member to talk to some other superintendents, and I was told, no, think about it, but don't talk to anybody. So we've already blown that 3 months, and I think to say that there isn't time is not doing a service to our member towns, to our kids. We cannot be a school district at this scale.
Jeannie?
One of my concerns, Pat, is that if we even hire an interim superintendent and then start to proceed to look at all this other stuff, we're losing time. We're losing time in which we can make some very important forward-moving changes. I'm even concerned about starting a search committee for a superintendent at this late date, because it's not.
Yeah.
When are you gonna start it?
I believe in July, I brought up the idea that we needed to start a search committee then, and I was told by multiple members of this committee, and I'm not saying who, that it was too early. We needed to wait till school started.
Yes, you did.
So school has started, and we need to think on what we're gonna do. Sue?
I'll just say, as a member of the Heart Committee, this is a great thing to collaborate on.
I think
right?
so.
Because the
Yeah.
Heart Committee is really looking at data to help us with this kind of a vision. It's sort of a perfect opportunity for that to take place. So, because I don't know how to, like, I keep thinking, okay, what if all of Franklin County was a school district? I mean, just how do you run these ideas, right? How do you, and so there are experts in regional planning who have worked with other districts who are looking at this issue, and hopefully, you know, we'll have some information to help us with that. We'll also have a process for how to engage our towns in that conversation.
And you and Bill are both serving on that committee, so.
So that will be a great thing to collaborate on. But we are gonna need someone that, you know, and we're gonna have to figure out our own structure for the time being.
Exactly, yeah.
And I vaguely remember it being recommended that we seriously consider a business manager.
Yes.
Which, if we're gonna be hiring a business manager, we're looking at a different role for a superintendent then. And I think that has to be decided.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. How can you go forward with hiring a superintendent if the idea of a business manager hasn't been settled?
Yeah, that's why I think we need to get a group of people together that are willing to work to have this discussion. You know, I think that it's not a discussion that we can start here. I think it has to start at a subcommittee level, and we come back to it. So I've heard that Jim would like to work on it. Do I have, Bill would? Okay. Who else is willing to help? Peggy, thank you.
You're going to be one busy lady.
Yeah, that's all right. Peggy likes to be busy.
She's retired, right? She can do this full time.
Anybody else interested? John?
Jim already offered. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have Jim. I have Jim, Bill, Peggy, John.
So
All
can
right.
we call that the search subcommittee?
I think the search subcommittee is better than nominating. That was, I don't know why it got named that, it just.
And it won't get mixed up with
And
search
this
committee.
is the initial search, this is a school committee search group.
Search
Because
subcommittee.
we-
subcommittee.
I would call it search subcommittee is now I
Peggy.
hear
So
that.
whose role would it be to reach out to other districts? I mean, it seems like
Well, I'm not sure that we know that. I'm thinking maybe I will talk to MASC and see what I can come up with for ideas.
I mean, just
Or our attorney and come up with some
see
ideas.
if there's any interest.
Right,
I mean, I'm not looking
exactly.
for commitments.
Right. So we need to also, these 4 people need to get together and decide when they can meet also. So we're gonna have lots of after meetings to figure out dates. All right, let's move along. There is an open meeting law complaint that was brought to us by the town of Bernardston, and there was a letter in our packet, and it basically says that people cannot hear our school committee meetings, and I'm not sure that tonight was any better, but we tried. So we're gonna have to figure out what to do. The only thing that really bothers me is the fact that if we do have a fixed location, that we will not be able to go to our 4 elementary schools. And for I mean, most of the school committee people, they may get to their own hometown school, but they have no idea what happens in the other schools. And years ago, that was something that I thought was a really important thing, is for us to go and visit our other schools. So whatever we figure out we can do, I don't want to be stuck in one place. I don't know how other people feel, but that's important to me.
I think people should be able to hear, though.
I think
really
people
do.
should be able to hear, and whether we have a portable system of some kind, I don't know. But it seems like a portable one that we could take from place to place.
Who does this? Building and grounds would do this?
I would think it would be building and grounds, yeah.
Technology.
Yeah.
Karaoke machine.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, something, I don't know. Something might. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you get it for your
I
kid.
know
they
what
have
it
like-
is.
They have a microphone and a little
Yeah, it works. So
speaker.
we need to probably turn that over to Building and Grounds to talk about that, because I don't know, Bob, you were the one who brought it up to me.
Right. No, I don't care, as long as we can hear. We have a right to hear what's going on.
We're not,
And I'm telling the people, look at the people that were here tonight, and they can't
Yeah.
hear in the back. I can sometimes not hear in the front. They want to know what's going on.
Totally. Yeah, David.
I think we ought to start by reconfiguring the room. I think we ought to put up boundary markers that say you're in the room, but if you're too far in the wings, it's unreasonable. So we need to find a space. We shouldn't necessarily have these tables facing each other because you can't project. So maybe a flying V and reserve seatings for those who have hearing disabilities in the front row. We may be able to attack it with some technology that where the people who have trouble hearing in general can have, it's done in churches all the time, have an earbud that they pick it up. Because when in a small room with a low-priced PA system, it can get pretty ugly. But if it's being delivered, to your ear, not to the whole room, it can work. That system would be portable. But this is, how do you think? You can hear me, but if I was sitting here, I'd be speaking to that wall. You can't expect to be in the...
It's just logical that we have a right to hear what's
Absolutely,
going
and
on.
I would urge everyone in the room who can't hear to occupy a chair forward at this hour.
It would be all of us.
Well,
I think it would be all of us.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, no, a lot of
well,
people
you're,
well, then you need to sit
Yeah.
as far forward as possible.
Be difficult not to hear.
maybe you should do all of it on the day.
I damn near do, and you don't like it. Yes. The Kiva is a room that's set up where people can hear. Let's move to the Kiva.
I wondered that myself.
All right, how about next meeting, we hold it in the Kiva?
Next meeting's in Warwick.
Next meeting's in
You'll be
Warwick.
able to hear in Warwick. You won't have any room to put a chair there, but you'll be able to hear.
Oh, there's plenty of room.
No, there's not that much room.
I am recollecting that this has come up in the
Small
past,
dining room.
and one of the issues with
People don't come anyway.
microphones and electronic amplification is that it interferes with the recording devices.
It
Yes.
does.
And
Yeah.
so that is something to think about as we talk about, well, can we set up a room where we have amplification, but I don't know what our obligation is as far as being recorded and broadcast.
I'm gonna go get water.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want me to fill their bottle?
People have to hear, that's, I think your
There-
first obligation.
There's no obligation to be recorded or broadcast. There is an obligation that the audience can hear you.
Yes.
I'm
So,
just
yeah.
checking, because I know that was brought up the last time this was
Right.
discussed.
David?
Somehow the recording gets to hear. Could we piggyback off of that to the earbud device?
That's what we tried doing tonight, but this is a relatively new system, and new systems take time to,
Yeah.
work through its kinks and stuff.
Appreciate the help.
So we'll try it another time that we're here and.
I'm sure in future meetings it'll work out.
Yes.
Pat, I'd just like to make an observation.
I don't think so.
Libraries are designed to be quiet rooms and to get rid of any noise so that you can study. So why are you holding a meeting in a library?
Because it's a big room.
Because it has chairs for you.
I think we have had meetings in the Kiva before, and it's really difficult for the committee to see each other, to be able to talk at a meeting. I think the audience can see us if we're at the bottom, and I think people coming can see us. But as far as our committee, I found it difficult for us to be able to have a meeting because we're at one long table. Maybe we should sit at the top and have everybody else sit. I mean, I don't know how to make it work.
Well, you know, I think it would be hard for people to get up to some other people.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's
We will let building and grounds work on that and do it as soon as they can. I mean, I don't know anything else. I think we're all getting a little testy this time of night. So let's go to our next fiscal year 17 yearly lunch report and the DESI lunch report.
So in your packet, you have a document that is 2 pages. And what I did is took all the monthly data sheets from last year, starting from the start of school through the summer pay, which some people opt to do, and tried to just give you some basic information, opening balances, the revenue, the expenses, the net loss, just a few pieces of information. In comparison, the net loss in 2014-15, as there was no formal lunch report last year, is less than it was. It's still a deficit, but it is less. We started decreasing personnel hours last year. This year is considerably different, as you know. Food service expenditures that come out of our revenue, our salaries, which are the highest in any department, the food, the delivery charges for the food, the supplies, and any equipment repairs. And I know there's been discussion previously on, do we budget salaries in our site budgets or do we leave them where they are? Obviously, that would considerably change the amounts of deficit. We are participating, just for your information, and you've heard me say this infrequently throughout the year, we participate in collaborative bidding for food, bread, supplies, milk, and we do it through the collaborative in Northampton, which most of the Pioneer Valley school districts do, from as far south as Springfield to north being Pioneer. We take advantage of the USDA commodities every month. We will be starting, because you can't start before October 1st, with our Department of Defense free fruits and vegetables offer. We're given an allotment every year, and that's what we spend, every penny of it. Our allotment this year is $5,100, and that will be shared within all 5 schools in the district until it's used up. At the end of the year, it used to be that other districts that did not use their full amount of DOD, it was split up and given to districts that had used theirs up. That has changed this year, and they aren't going to split it up and give it to other people. I don't know what they're doing with it, but they aren't giving it to us. So the number of lunches sold at each site, I delineated that by site, combining total meals of breakfast and lunch. And I want to point out something, because should you be someone who would go back to those monthly documents for lunch and add them up, you would find that the Pioneer number on this chart is higher, because those sheets every month go to the DESE for our reimbursement. Therefore, the numbers that we can submit only are those that are free and reduced. So these count all the second lunches that really only affects Pioneer. And that's why if you were to add those all up, this would be higher, because I took and looked at every single meal that they serve, which is accurate. So just so you know, that will be different. So the 5 schools are there, and just remember, and I didn't play with these numbers, so when you go to labor hours per day, and I'm talking about last year, so that's 16, 17. Remember that the larger 2 elementary schools do a lot of preparation for the 2 smaller schools. So the 2 smaller schools reflect the hours that they are actually serving breakfast and lunch with a little bit of time for prep. It would be inaccurate of me to guess, because every day with a different meal would mean that it would be different hours, say that Northfield would work technically to help Warwick's. So this is accurate for what those people are in there, but I didn't play with the numbers to shift for the smaller schools. What else did I want to make sure? Oh, every year when I have done these reports in the past, the state of Massachusetts recommends that the average student meals per labor hours should be between 12 and 15. And usually, sometimes we're lower, sometimes we're higher. And again, when you look at that compared to Pearl Roads and Warwick, well, Pearl Roads really, remember that some of that prep is done in another site. But that's just there because it's a fact, and it really hasn't changed in years. Holly Manson did do a calculation of data last year for Northfield and Warwick school lunches, because that's what she was in charge of then. And she did, on average, that the least expensive meal to prepare was 99 cents, and the most expensive meal was $1.40, depending upon what was served. And she did that over a period of time. The third sheet, which is on legal size paper, is a report that Pam prepares all this data. The lunch program is done by many of us because it's a huge task and undertaking, and Pam has always done this piece, and this is the report that goes to the DESE at the end of the school fiscal year. And I just included that for you to have. And the revenue and expenditures numbers match what I pulled out and showed you here. I don't know if you have any questions, or if you do later after you look at it. You did have this in your packet when you received your packet.
Isn't this the thing that got sent to us online? It was red and black.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, it's just a smaller copy.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
it
just
was
want
red.
to say, this was so helpful. And
This is a lot of, this is Pam Lawrence. She does a lot of work, and this is part of what has to be submitted with our,
yeah.
not our accreditation, our, to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So is it accurate? Well, first I have one question. Prepaid/short paid, can you just tell me what that is?
Could you say that again?
Prepaid/short paid, it's right under a la carte.
Third or fourth thing down.
Under revenue? Is that just people that are prepaid for lunches, or people that have bought lunch and haven't paid, like, what is
I would assume, and I will verify this for you, that those are the people who pay online. But I might be wrong.
Okay, I just, the only part I couldn't figure out.
I'll remember. I don't have a pen with me. Thank you.
So, of course, I'm sure we're all looking at this, right, thinking about the ongoing problem that we have.
Exactly.
But it looks like the difference between the start and the end is about $40,000, right? So, that we need to be thinking about budgeting into our budget on a regular basis, at least that much money on an ongoing basis.
And some of you have mentioned that.
Yeah, so that we don't go into a deficit, that just needs to be part of our
Exactly.
next year's
Right.
budget,
Right.
right? And we need to be talking to our towns about helping us get rid of the 200 and something thousand that we're never gonna get rid of otherwise.
And the
Right,
towns
so-
have brought that to your
Right,
attention
they
also.
have, so those two things, it seems just clear, we need to do. Right?
No,
Tell me what my thinking is wrong.
let's,
You think
I
it's not
think we
appropriate?
need, I don't think we need to go to the towns for a supplemental appropriation. I think we need to do our job budgetarily, and I think we're on the path.
Okay, so I don't know if this is the time to have that discussion, but.
Todd?
Is
Your
that-
agenda.
Yeah, can I ask you about the ending balance of June 2017, on the first sheet you were talking? Should that figure be 249,500, 645? So it looks like you started with both opening balances, it still comes up with about 40,000 in the hole. But closing balance should be 249,645.82 instead of 220,067.
Are you looking on this sheet to
Yeah.
get that?
Maybe it's
And that's how you
different.
come up with about $40,000. I mean, I know you get the 40,000 on the other one too.
So it's an opening for June and that's an ending.
And then, yeah, the figure just is 1 month ahead.
I double checked all these, but let me.
So the top one is an
process
opening balance
that.
and the bottom one is a closing balance, so they're a month difference.
So I'm saying the ending balance for June 2017 should not be $220,067. It should be.
It's 249,645.82.
645.
Well, that was the starting balance for
Right,
June, not
right.
the ending balance for
You have to
June.
go to the
So
bottom.
that's-
The top number is the opening balance
It
and
needs to be
top.
changed.
Starting balance
It's on the
is
top.
209,000.
They've got names.
right, but the starting balance for June is 220,067.
Go to the bottom.
And all the way down at the bottom, the closing balance for June is 249.
Correct, but look at this sheet.
Look at this one.
Oh, that, I wasn't looking at that one,
Well,
okay, yeah.
that's
Right, I
very
will-
different.
That's different.
Yeah.
I will go back and,
This is,
I
Look
spent
at
a
all my
lot of time
numbers.
with this one, and when I got to that, the report, I was,
Fried.
felt like I was seeing the general.
this is the second
so I
time.
didn't just use this, I added up every single month, so I will check.
This is the second time tonight we have had errors in figures that have been presented to the school committee, and I find it frustrating, and it feels not transparent. I know you're not trying to make it not transparent, but it feels.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it feels not transparent.
Well,
And it's confusing, so.
Well, I don't have all my
Figures need
hand
to be checked.
calculations here that I used, and I will double check all of that. This, as you might imagine, is a huge amount of work, and, you know, I apologize if there's an error, but I will go back, and I don't have all my handwritten numbers with me in my calculator.
Really good analysis.
Looks like a lot of work.
David.
I really appreciate this, and I want to note there's a possibility for hundreds of millions of errors with all the data we have been given. So, you know, perhaps we could get a math class to vet our work.
Madam Chairman? I think it's the responsibility of the school committee to find errors and help the administration correct them.
And we've been working on it from the sounds.
Respectfully.
Okay, is that all?
Yes.
Okay. I see a hand out there.
Thank you, Gil.
Thanks a bunch. Yes.
Just a quick question on the early childhood tuition. I believe they had mentioned that if the tuition, the teachers aren't all covered, so the school pays for some of the teachers in those classes.
That's
For
true.
early childhood, that's true?
Yes.
So would the school lunch program benefit from doing the same thing if there isn't enough funds to cover the 40,000, whatever the deficit is, which is now to 249, if that had been being done over the years to to cover that, to offset that as a subsidy? Would that be similar?
No, because there's rules and regulations about how much you can actually increase lunch prices, and the preschool isn't mandatory. It's not mandatory that they eat the lunch, but preschool is very different. We have to provide for our 3-year-olds that have been identified as special needs. We do not have to use it all, a full day. They can come a half day. They could come just for OT or PT. So it's very different. The lunch program is something that we have to do, and we are limited to the amount of money that we can charge people for that food.
Okay, I'm just talking about offsetting the difference of what is the negative is every year, covering that cost.
Oh, so you're saying like put it back into the general fund?
How do we appropriate money to cover the loss instead of letting it get up to $249,000 and try to cover it every year at a smaller number? Now we're up to $249 from what, 5-6 years? I assume that's how many years it's been growing?
Longer than that. At least, yeah.
2012,
It was already-
2013?
Yeah. No, 2010, when I came in, it was already 40,000 deficit, so it's been going on.
And then one year it was
a
like
long time.
150.
That was just.
David hasn't yet.
I know, he
okay.
was still speaking.
Just letting other people talk.
David?
What I got from that question would suggest to me that with the preschool money, we got a revenue source, and it's not hitting the general fund, it's going to that particular fund. There isn't any unreported income for school lunch. It all goes into the lunch fund, and it isn't enough. So to get rid of the current deficit, I believe a good way forward would be for us to appropriate from the general fund money to cover salary and wages and such. So that way we could stop the bleeding of current operations, which you've seen the history here, 50,000, 50,000, 30,000. We've got to come at that with our revenues in addition to the fee income that we make. In terms of dealing with the prior debt, Sue thinks that the best way would be to go to the towns and get the assessment, maybe spread it out over a few years, but somehow bury it. Another way would be for us to manage to having a margin, having a positive balance at the end of the year. It could then be, as the school committee spent its reserves over the years down to 0 and below, those reserves could be allocated to that.
Now, wasn't the letter from the state, didn't it say that the deficit affects the instructional money that comes from the state?
I don't believe
My
that's
understanding is
true.
it affects our, what is to the school free cash that they call excess and deficiency. In our case, it's deficiency.
Deficiency, we don't have the excess.
I don't think it does the instruction.
No. But that was the point of why the cuts that we, as the administrative team, looked at were larger than the amount that we needed to cover for the transportation, so that we would have some money at the bottom line that then you could choose to do something with it.
We could have an agenda item at our next meeting to reallocate the budget and actually create an expense line to allocate in this current year some of that revenue. And we could pledge it now with the public properly noticed.
Maybe that's a discussion that the budget subcommittee
Aren't
should
we
have.
supposed to vote all the line item changes?
Mhm. We are.
So at some point, we've got to get a sheet that's plus and minus.
So we can go through and vote it all.
I mean, this, we could change it from budget cuts to budget changes. Net change
You
plus and minus.
you can title it anything you want. I'm really okay with that. But that should just go to the subcommittee first and then bring it back to a vote of the whole committee.
Exactly.
And then, yeah.
All right, shall we move to personnel? There was some information that was given to us this evening, of which I cannot find,
Looks like this.
that speaks on personnel. Thank you.
Big
I
table.
don't know where that came from, but whoever gave it to me, thank you.
David.
Okay, thanks, David.
I've already memorized it.
Um, So, I know, it's too much paper. Did anyone want to speak to this, or is this pretty well self-explanatory? Any questions? Everybody's okay? Go home and digest it. David, you can have yours back, because I'm sure I have it someplace here. We've already heard from Budget Subcommittee, or spoke on the budget. There's been no other subcommittees meeting during the month, I don't believe. The next business.
Do CNP.
The next business we have is our school committee meeting, but also, I just saw this in the paper, I think, or on the town webpage, something, that on the 9th of November, there's going to be a district leaders workshop for school committee members, town finance and select boards in our library, which we won't be able to hear, I understand.
What kind of a workshop? I didn't hear what you said.
District leader workshop. It was in the paper today, or it was someplace I saw it.
Who's running this?
I'm not sure. Bob, do you know who's sponsoring this? It
Oh,
was in the paper today, or it was online, or someplace I read about it today.
You find it.
Well, we'll tell you more about it in our October meeting.
Well, I know the Warwick Select Board was interested in this, so.
Do you know
this
who's
may be the
sponsoring it,
accept-
David?
that- It may be the Warwick, or Warwick and Northfield Select Boards.
Yeah, I don't remember. I saw it someplace, but I don't know where. And
It's a good
as-
idea, whoever's thought of it.
Yeah. As Robin reminded us, that our next meeting is in Warwick, and it's early, so we won't run into a snowstorm, hopefully.
Oh, my word.
But
Don't jinx it.
do we have any
Don't
school
say
committee
that.
comments at this point that need to be happening? Have we all commented?
Lucky if I know my name right now.
All right, then.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.